Hey guys, welcome to the Giant Slayer European Cup. I am Doa, and with me is Frodan, as always. And today we have the last day of I guess you could say, sort of the regular season. It's the last day for four of our nations that are competing to gather some points, get themselves to the semifinals. It's going to be an exciting day. How you doing, Frodan? Oh, you're muted.
And I'm doing well. Today is the last day of the 10.14 patch, and I think I've really come to actually enjoy this patch. I know that it's kind of a
Hmm.
controversial hot take, but I
All
think,
right.
think that this patch has been very good to me and my playstyle and what I prefer. I know that there's probably some, a little bit too much dominance from certain compositions, but looking forward to see what we're going to have for the last day of competition, given that yesterday was quite the explosive performance from Germany.
Yeah, for sure. Germany kind of crushed it yesterday, so it's kind of the big question on everybody's minds: if can they continue that momentum or not, and if they can't, which one of the other three nations is going to come up in points? Because well, we'll get into the points later. Actually, let's take a look at our format here to kind of like let you know what's going on in this tournament. Basically, we've got 8 countries. Each country has 4 players. Each one of those countries will be competing on 2 days, 2 players each day. Last week we had 4 countries. This week we've got 4 countries. And so at the end of today, we'll know in terms of overall points who the top 4 nations are in the tournament, who are the countries that are going on to the semifinals next week. And it's a 2v2v2 format, as you can see. So basically, it is possible for one or more even of the bottom 2 teams from last week to make it through the semifinals, depending on how the teams perform today. If we do have this crazy situation where Germany just continues to absolutely blow out everybody, there's a chance that it might be Germany coming in and then one of the bottom 2 teams from next week makes it through it. It could get crazy, but let's take a look at the prize pool as well. As you can see, a little bit of money on the line, but I think what everyone's kind of more concerned about is the national pride, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you just see it in our chat. You see it within the players who are kind of talking about it and even setting up some fun rivalry back and forth. Is that the players want to be able to declare themselves not only the best players, but also the best country slash sub region within Europe. And,
Yeah,
money is great. Obviously, winning is great for yourself. But, how cool is it to say, like, oh, the best players in Europe are Portuguese players, or the best players in Europe are German players, or the best players are French players, etc. And I think
right.
there's a lot to ride on the line for these players because of that.
Yeah, for sure. I think last week Portugal was the big winner. This week it looks like Germany was. Speaking of Germany, yesterday we saw Sasa and Salvyyy play. Today it's going to be on DarkHydra and NarkezTFT to kind of keep up that momentum. As you can see on the right, that is today's list of players. We've got some pretty good names on here. Tabzz as well is an interesting name. Former League of Legends pro bot laner for many years, actually. Now swapping over to TFT, and we'll see if he can kind of find a similar success.
Yeah, that's right. From, playing in the bot lane and now claiming the top of lobbies, Tabzz is one of the players to watch for today, given his awesome performance in Twitch Rivals last week as well. And then DarkHydra, the other player that's been receiving lots of hype. He's been performing very well on ladder consistently, all 3 sets. He's performed pretty decently in a couple of tournaments as well. We haven't had too many opportunities for EU players to really shine compared to North America, but the few
Mm.
opportunities he's had some pretty good showings. And of course, perhaps the the scariest thing and the most fun thing is that DarkHydra gets a lot of praise from his peers. And, I think that it's one thing to have a lot of tournament results and be really proud of it, but when everybody else is saying this guy is like a top 2 scariest player in Europe, that automatically puts you with a big target on your back.
Yeah, for sure. I think another storyline coming into today is something that relates to what Sasa said yesterday when we interviewed him after he had his points leading day in day number 1 of this week's groups of play, where he said, I asked him going into today, what is the scariest country going to be? And he actually said Italy. He was really thinking that Monphis and SwellerTiger from Italy were going to be able to come up and give everyone a run for their money. Now, Italy struggled a little bit yesterday to I think be nice about it, and so they would need to have a big comeback if they wanted to have any sort of chance at all to get into the semifinals. I'm not sure, like numerically, it may be close to impossible, but that's the group of players anyway that our best player from yesterday was most concerned about. So that's kind of interesting to hear and something to watch out for today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, going into today, I think we've learned from the first 3 days of competition is you can't really predict what's going to happen. It's still
True.
just a 5 game sample size. But more importantly, it's all about the individual and the team performance, not just the one player to keep an eye on. DarkHydra could do well, but if the rest of the team members aren't really doing well as at the same time, then you end up just struggling for the overall.
That's right. So into game number one, and it's a binary star. Interesting. I believe this is the first one we've had. Yeah, it's the first. No, we did have one day two of last week actually, but it's cool. It is one of the newer galaxies, and so it'll be interesting to see how people approach it. As we get on board with a DarkHydra to start things off. Now, a lot of people said when Binary Star first came out, Frodan, that basically, oh, well, this is good for cybers. You want to spread your items around anyway. Here's a better excuse to do that. But aside from cybers, do you think there's any other compositions right now that can do particularly well? Race to top eight.
Yeah,
Best of luck,
Narcez
Germany.
and DarkHydra kind of talking about like it's race to the top eight. I think a lot of players are convinced that based off their starting item, they can really pick out how they're going to perform for the rest of the lobby.
True.
DarkHydra has 4 Xayahs at stage 1-3, and Xayah can just be an item holder temporarily. But going back to your question, what are the compositions do well? I think that the compositions that can spread out their damage really effectively by only having 2 items as their carry end up doing the best. It's not a big surprise, right? But you mentioned Cybernex being one of them. They love spreading their items, so it does tend to feed into that. I think they do marginally better on this galaxy, but not too much. The main composition that I look at on this galaxy is Astro Snipers, primarily because you have several items that you always want to place on your carries, like Teemo and Jhin and Gnar.
Sure.
But you can spread them out, and they're still very, very effective, even with just 2 items. For Teemo, it's blue buff and some kind of AP item, and for Jhin, it's some kind of combination of damage with some utility like Last Whisper.
I suppose you can get a similar situation going with Dark Stars as well, where you can have Ash with a couple items, Jhin with a couple items, and Shaco with a couple items, and then shift those over later to things like Xerath and all that. So I think people are figuring out too. When this galaxy first came out, the meta had not been as developed yet as far as who should have what items, who should even be in what comp, right? So I think nowadays this is a galaxy that players feel a lot more comfortable playing on in general.
Yeah, and I think that it's a galaxy that has slight influence on things, but not really too much.
Yeah.
It basically just takes away the power of like single carry compositions, but they've largely gravitated away from that now. And I
Right.
know that there's one comp that you're particularly fond of, Star Guardian Sorcerers. For example, I think that they struggle a little more on this galaxy than they
Yeah,
do
I'd
on
agree.
others. Just
Yeah.
because you can't stack like Syndra or Ari and make them like the dynamic hyper carry.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of people, would consider Nico a carry in that build as well. But she doesn't do damage fast enough to carry in the same way a traditional one, like a Syndra or a Shaco or something would. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I do agree with you that I think Star Guardians is a little bit weaker on Binary Star. Mostly because you lack that generally you lack that defensive item on Syndra, which you kind of need sometimes. But Dark
Yeah.
Hydra debating on what he's going to do. We saw him chatting a little bit with Narkez about Shredder possibly, which I suppose given the items, he could make a Last Whisper. He's kind of waiting to see what else pops up, but it's an option.
Yeah, it does get slightly better on Binary Star, according to the data. And funny enough, even though I told you about some of my theory on how Star Guardians might perform worse, data says that they actually perform better on Binary Star. So
Oh, really? Huh.
it is interesting, right? That kind
Well,
of trend.
yeah, I
And
guess if
data's
you
not always
itemize,
everything, but
I mean, I guess it lets you do things like itemize Ari, Syndra, and Janna. So I could see that as well. I think I do agree that sometimes lacking that defensive or offensive item can mean the round in a comp like Star Guardians, but at the same time, if you just add on someone else doing more damage, I suppose it seems data wise that makes up to it or makes up for it rather. That's interesting.
yeah, always food for thought. Data isn't
Yeah.
everything, although a lot of times players love to favor that aspect of their gameplay, or perhaps some players don't favor it enough. But yeah, definitely all just food for thought to consider as
Right.
Dark Hydra proceeds forward. Still hasn't found any additional Zayas, but he does have things like this Fiora in the shop and has a lot of bench going on, and I kind of wonder from DarkHydra's perspective what he's going to sell in order to start leaning towards the composition, because he kind of declared himself early as a potential better player.
Yeah, to his
Cyber
teammate
player,
anyway. No one else knows. He can still pivot, I suppose, but he is playing
right?
super wide. And I think, he's just hoping that he wins this round now so that he doesn't need to sell anything on his bench because he's got 4 pairs. So it'd really be nice to turn one of those into a 2-star to go along with the Zyra at some point, or the Zaya rather, at some point. But doesn't look like it's going to be this round. So if he wants to make 10 gold, he has to sell something. Yeah, I think TF is probably the first one on the chopping block. You saw him kind of separated from the rest. All right, announcing he's going to go for the tier on the carousel. Interesting.
Yeah. Interesting, because I think he also is looking at that last whisper and thinking, okay, I got my Jhin item. If I start building tier, I can immediately start leaning towards playing Astro Snipers and maybe get that Teemo stuff going along.
Oh, but it
But
gets
tier is
taken though.
such a high,
Kalsir.
it's such a high priority pick that it's very rare for tier to go to like the third wave. Usually, if someone
Yeah.
has up on the first, it's because they need a very specific item combination, and then like it's gone by wave 2.
Yeah, he was tied with Kelsier for at 86 HP. So I suppose there was a chance he might have been able to, go sooner and maybe grab it, but didn't work out. Do you know how those HP tiebreakers are broken on the carousel rounds? I don't even actually know. Is it random?
Oh yes, it is from a very skill intensive and player agency ability known as 50/50.
Okay, all right. That's what I thought. I always
Understood.
suspected it was just random. But I didn't know if there was some sort of hidden algorithm that it's like, this player's ID is earlier in the alphabet or something like that. But rough
It's
luck
completely
for
random.
DarkHydra.
If you're tied in HP and you don't really get to,
I didn't
but
want to
if
assume.
it doesn't look like they were tied. It looks like a very slight 88 versus 86 HP. It's
Oh,
just a slight blur on our screen, so.
you're right. Yeah, it is a little bit tricky to read on our screen sometimes. Well, never mind then.
All right. Well, picking up a pivot into a brawler, while holding these items and going for a thief's gloves, open to the idea of perhaps playing rebels or some kind of jinx composition. And I really like the communication going between DarkHydra and Narkez. They're
Yeah.
basically just kind of talking and providing commentary on constantly updating their state of the game. Which is interesting, because the more that they talk, it means that the less that they can focus on scouting and like adapt to what their opponents are doing. And I wonder if that's just like a trade off that they're totally willing to go for right
I don't think we've seen players on stream talk as much as these two are talking right now. Like we know what's going on, but we haven't seen as much kind of constant communication. I think on the streams you've been watching, so that is kind of cool to see. Right now, DarkHydra just kind of trying to make things work a bit with Protector Celestial start, and Ziggs with the Thieves Gloves. He should be able to do it a decent amount of damage, I suppose.
Right.
But it's a little bit of an awkward situation for DarkHydra right now because he's still very wide. He still has not decided what direction he's going to go, and the game's items aren't really helping him so much. So he's going to have to wait through Krugs, through the Terror Bursters next round, and see what items he gets, and let that maybe influence his decision a little bit more.
Yeah, I would still say that he's leaning towards playing some kind of Astro Snipers composition. Thieves Gloves tends to be very good on Gnar, and part of the reason why
Sure.
it's still perfectly fine to play is because in Binary Star Galaxy, everyone has 2 items anyways, and on normal galaxies, Thieves Gloves give you 2 items, so I think it's totally fine there.
Right.
So we'll see what he ends up choosing. He's still playing that early Rumble, which I think is a very nice unit to use. I've been playing more Rumble when I have early Ziggs carry, and it's been very effective.
Yeah, the AoE stun, the kind of Morello's-esque effect from the Rumble Ultimate can make a difference in some of those early fights. He finds a tier. Okay. And a sword. All right. Well, it's a couple things here. So, you've got the option for something like a
Wow.
Shojin's. You've got, a few different ways you can kind of go with this, but it's interesting. As far as Astral Snipers goes, there
Oh
is a
my.
Teemo, so that's an opportunity for him to pick that up.
It's really strange because out of all of like the early Astro units, Teemo's the least effective, which sounds really surprising given that he's the carry. But like
That's
Gnar
totally true, though.
and Bard and Nautilus all have higher impact.
Yeah.
And like I was playing in a lobby earlier today, and one player like found like a Teemo at 4, I think, because they pre-leveled. And I was like, wow. And they had like blue buff Morello on them.
Mm.
I was like, wow, Teemo's just gonna like destroy everyone. That person didn't win until like middle of stage 3. So I was like, wow, I guess Teemo won with those items still aren't reliable enough. Which
Yeah.
is quite surprising, given that a lot of times those compositions really need Teemo to stabilize.
Well, Teemo 1 just is so fragile, right? So if you're gonna dedicate yourself to a Teemo 1 early on, you really need to make sure he's protected because he's gonna be like basically the basket that holds all of your eggs for winning, and he can easily be cracked and broken. So if he isn't surrounded basically as much as you can really in the game, a lot of times, yeah, he'll die before he can ult, and then that's GG. So I am
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah. So I'm we'll see what he decides to go with, but an early Teemo, yeah, without the proper protection is not going to get you a whole lot. But he seems to kind of be leaning in a little bit of a protectors and Star Guardians side of things now actually. And you could still he's still flexible, he's still open, but this direction could easily, if he lands a Syndra, run you into just a Star Guardians comp.
Yeah, very much so. Star Guardian still is completely viable
Oh yeah.
as a way to continue to transition. And it is kind of weird because the items that he has slammable would not go with the champion choices that he has because he had the opportunity to go for that Rage Blade and Shojin, for example, and just like maybe go to Ashe. But he's kind of so far away developed from that tree that I don't think it's something that he's going to go for at the
Yeah, you don't really have protection for the ash, and the nice thing about this particular kind of composition is that in stage 3 at least, wow, free Master E too, but in this stage at least, you can get by on synergies, right? So if you've got a powerful synergy combination like the stun from Demolitionist, he's got the Protector Shields, he's got the Star Guardian buff and the spell damage. You don't necessarily need items to do okay with on this board until like around stage 4 would start, then you're going to start hurting a little bit. So he's got some time at least to start putting this together.
Yeah. And I think that that's really important to note, just that there's not really any kind of rush at the moment. Even though he's at 68 HP and he's kind of been win losing, the idea is that like if you can get to stage 4-1 and find a really, as long as he's keeping a reasonably strong board and losing only by a few units, he
Mm.
still can go for level 7 roll down. But right now he's kind of losing convincingly to some of these other builds. Cybernetics winning by 4 units, that's painful. Can't really
Yeah, that
keep any more of those.
that was SwellerTiger up at number 2 on the lobby. He's been on a win streak for a while. SwellerTiger from Italy, and that's just going to be a very hard to beat board for I think a lot of people in the lobby right now. So we'll see what the carousel brings. Lots of tier opportunities. All right, if he wants it, he's got it now. Yeah, why not do that? Get the 4 gold as well from the Aurelia. So blue buff will be online. And props to him for not slamming the early Shojins, because a lot of people that would want to go for some sort of blue buff composition would be like, "Oh man, like I'm losing. I feel really bad. Like I need to get something going. At least Shojins gets me some mana," and then they would slam that, and then they would have an opportunity for a tier later like this and be like, "Oh no, why did I build that?" So I think that's an important lesson for anyone that likes to go for tier comps that need the blue buff to not get baited into a Shojin. Like just wait, just be patient.
Yep, that's right. I think that being able to be patient in this game is really important.
Yeah,
Kind of a defining characteristic of players like Milk, who are okay going down to 20 HP and then just playing the rest of the game from that point on.
right.
But it's like being able to look at the overall big picture and understand your role in it. Speaking of big picture, hopping on board with SwellerTiger, who is win streaking with the Cybernetics comp and kind of what you were predicting, which is Cybernetics being able to do well on this galaxy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of being able to spread your items more easily, like we talked about, but it's also the just strength of cybernetics at this stage in the game right now. It seems like if you manage to hit things like he's got the Leona 2 for a good front line, that gives all of your 1-star carries, like he doesn't have the 2-star vein yet or anything like that, time, to sort of grind through other teams. So it's,
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
right.
bad. Yeah.
I think that overall the cybernetics has become a win streak composition again. I think people were really accustomed to cybernetics in the 10.13 patch, where you could lose streak and you'd be totally fine. love this little construct versus Caitlyn duel. It was really funny. And I think that like now we see that Cybernetics needs to really be in a down position once more because while in the past it was completely possible for you to play lose streak, that doesn't seem possible in 10.14. And now that people have figured that out and they're looking at keys to give them that early game advantage, seems once again that Cybernetics is more viable of a composition and kind of creeping up that tier list very slowly.
Yeah, it's funny because like I never really liked playing Cybernetics since set 3 came out for a variety of reasons. But this if this patch has done anything for me, it's made me appreciate and play and enjoy Cybernetics more. So I've got that going for me. It's not a bad comp when it comes down to it. In its current form, I think it's a bit more fun. And man, that Fiora with the redemption is such a great addition because she's going to soak a lot of damage, and then when she goes down, she's going to restore your carries again. So he really does need to find that like Vayne 2 soon. But for now, he's got just about the best kind of front line you could hope for.
Yeah, and I think that with the Leona and the Jace, that's usually strong enough right now, but this is the point where his composition is going to start falling off, and
Yeah.
level 7 tends to be very scary for Cybers because sometimes you hit nothing because you're getting all the Jins and the Timos and the Sorakas, and you're not really
Right.
fighting like Irelia and all these other really important units. So this is the turning point. So pay close attention to how Sweller is going to be rolling.
Yeah, well, sometimes I've noticed lately in my cybernetics games that because you're in that spot where like sometimes you're usually playing 3 cybernetics and other stuff. So if you come across like a Gnar right there, something like that, there are occasions, this is not one of them, but there are occasions sometimes where you throw in the Gnar if you've got, a Vi with a nice item on it. And so you can use some of these 4 costs that you wouldn't normally get or that you wouldn't normally use to sort of bridge a gap until you find some more of your 2-star cybers. But that's big. Finding the 2-star Vayne is a huge moment for the development of this comp.
Absolutely. That's a really big power spike and exactly what you're looking for. In fact, I completely agree with the lack of rolling after you find that Vayne 2 because
Yeah.
now we have enough to go to fast 8. And I don't even know if he's like still the strongest person in the lobby that's win streak. He could possibly be like 4th in the lobby right now based off everyone else. In contrast, his opponent has rolled all their gold down and found a Xerath. But even if he does end up losing this round, which doesn't look like he does, he's in such a good position because he has so much HP preservation that he could afford to go to level 8, roll down his gold, or not even necessarily roll down. He can just go to 8, put in a unit for synergy, and just chill.
Yeah, wow, finds another couple veins as well. So there's a possibility if he's the only person playing this in the lobby, he could go over to a Vayne 3 at some point in the game. Good start for him. We're going to jump on board with teachmeshreddin, who is currently doing a little bit of scouting, but we'll see how he's doing. Currently 3rd in the lobby overall.
Yeah, so Poland overall in the standings, kind of just like right in the middle there. Definitely needs to make up some ground, but overall they still some pretty solid moments, especially by Vicer yesterday. Going for the Ashe with a QSS, which is particularly interesting to me, given that people used to like really feel like if you played Shojin, you really want to give her other ways to stack mana. But I think
Yeah.
we've really come to understand that it's really just Shojin is all you need on Ashe. Everything else kind of supports her already. You have Jarvan that gets attack speed, which is really important. If you play Chrono, you give her attack speed there. And especially if you end up playing units like Karma, then she gets all the attack speed she needs. Doesn't really need like a Shojin. Or sorry,
Right.
a Hurricane.
Right. Because it was Shojin's Runes for a long time, and now the Runes is kind of like, well, we can find other better uses for those item components. But right now, Teach Me Shreddin going for the Vanguard Mystic comp, and doesn't quite have all the Vanguards together yet, rolling on 3 right now. But he's got things like the Celestial to sort of help him sustain a little bit more. And this is a composition that we've seen very consistently in like top 4s, top 3s over the days of not this tournament, but other tournaments out there. It's maybe not the most exciting composition in the world to play, but it's definitely effective.
Yeah, it's
GGH,
super
wow.
effective.
Yeah.
And with 2 Guardian Angels but no 3rd slot, that is kind of one of the downsides of playing the Vanguard Mystic when you feel like you want to make Cassiopeia your main damage
Right.
dealer, but you really need blue buff and an AP item. So this is like kind of one of those awkward moments, but 2 GAs is still extremely powerful.
We've
I
definitely
also
got. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I also really like the fact that he's not prioritizing the 4 vanguards and 4 mystics super quickly. Some people even try to go as far as 6 vanguards at level 8 this part of the game. And I think that there's a lot more front line that you can explore, which is using a protector build, which I really like.
Yeah, I think if you've got a lobby that's like all AD damage, then by all means, go 6 Vanguard. But a lot of times lobbies are a little bit more diverse than that right now, and so it's good to sort of keep the synergies a little bit more fluid until you get into the later stages of the game. I like how he decided to use his GAs at least. I think Wukong and Jace are definitely the best holders of those in the comp right now because both of them can usually get another ult if they come back, and they also just give more time to Cassiopeia. Oh, Battlecast Wukong. Okay. That's interesting. So I wonder, I bet all of the hits of Wukong's ultimate translate into Battlecast procs. So he builds up
Oh,
those
that is
10 pretty
interesting.
fast. I don't know that for sure,
Huh.
but that would make sense based on how Battlecast interacts with a bunch of other abilities. Um, but yeah, I think I never thought about that before, but he seems like a good one to make Battlecast if you have to do it.
Yeah, it's particularly interesting because, like you said, it triggers on 10 instances of damage, and Wukong
Damage or
spins
damage
and
taken, yeah.
hits. So, yeah, Wukong should theoretically be a stronger holder of the Battlecast armor. Again,
Yeah,
I'm
for
not
sure.
sure entirely. This could be one of those things where teachmeshreddin is just essentially like trying to win streak or preserve his HP during the stage of the game where Vanguard Mystic is the strongest, and punishing transitions or yeah, people in the lobby who are transitioning their composition that aren't online.
All right, interesting. So we're gonna move over to Kalsir from the Netherlands to see what he's working on. Looks like he also is going for a bit of Vanguard's Mystic action, but for now, relying on a Jin. Oh no, he's making the swap over to Astro Snipers. It looks like. All right, I didn't look at the bench right away, but cool adaptation gets you into composition that maybe isn't as contested, and he's got the items for it, so could be pretty strong.
Yeah, Azure Snipers is my current favorite build in terms of like if I could pick one composition that I would want to play in like solo one trick all the way to whatever rank I'm going for. Oh, is that an
Mhm.
Ash 3? What on
Oh my
earth?
gosh, what? How do you get Nash 3 so fast?
I mean, he
Monphis
is
from
doable,
Italy.
but
Yeah,
is it even gonna be enough? Is it just lose simply because there's just too much frontline?
he gets a win at least, but man, that was close, but I don't know. That's a lot to invest into an Ash 3. And it is an Ash 3, but then again, it's also an Ash 3. So I'm curious to see how that's gonna work. He's desperate though, right? He's 9 HP. He needs to do something, you know?
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts on that. For one, I think going for
All right.
3 stars on binary star is actually not nearly as impactful because
Oh,
you invest
totally.
triple the amount of gold that you would into that champion, and you lose 33% output of items. And as
Yeah.
we know, TFT is a game that's very item driven. Many people have argued that the item is even more important than the champion, and that's been true in a lot of meta games. And so, if you're
Sure.
going to be playing a game where items are really important and you lose the ability to itemize a carry that you get to 3 star, then it does feel like that performance of that 3 star is going to be very underwhelming relative to the normal games that you.
Yeah, I would agree with you completely with that. It generally isn't worth it, and I would imagine that's one of those situations where he just didn't have anything going for him, and he's like, "Well, I've got a lot of ashes. If I get Ash 3, maybe that's something that can carry me through. Who knows?" Going up against Tabzz now, and we'll see how that goes. Tabzz has the early Aurelion Soul with the Ludens and the Jeweled Gauntlet, so that's going to be a lot of damage and a lot of drain coming out with it. Ezreal with the Shroud too is pretty crazy because that's going to be slowing down the spells, and then he's going to hit him with the EMP, so that can just straight up shut down a lot of champions. It's an interesting champion item combination.
Yeah, don't forget the most important thing is that Tabs not only is Kalsir's teammate, but Tabs has completed Jinx 2. And I think that now that he has Jinx 2 and he's an Aurelion Soul with 2 AP items that are pretty good, looks like Tabs is in a pretty good spot to potentially top 4 in this lobby. I'm not sure how Rebel Blasters do beyond that. I personally think that it's like a top 3 comp at best. But I have seen some lobbies where it's even going as far as beating some of these other really good compositions in stage 6. And the lobby texture has been aggressive enough where Tabzz might be able to get third place pretty easily. I don't know if he's going to beat players like SwellerTiger or teachmeshreddin, who are win streaking with really powerful comps right now that can
Right.
scale into the late game. But yeah, we'll see.
All right. Well, going up against teachmeshreddin now, who is still relying on that Vanguard Mystic composition. Doing plenty of damage with it too. Yeah. Seems like kalsir's having a little bit of trouble chewing through all of this. The Jhin will need to get replaced anyway. Teemo, though, not quite able to get that last shroom off. But that's the thing with this comp. When it runs into a lot of champions with Guardian Angels, then suddenly those shrooms get a little bit less effective because you're kind of relying on just blowing people up, right? But if they come back anyway, as soon as they get to Teemo, especially if it's a Teemo 1, it is a Teemo 2 in this case, but especially if it gets to Teemo, it's going to break him pretty fast, you know?
Yeah, what ends up becoming the Achilles heel for champions like Teemo is when some stragglers get separated from the pack. And it's kind of like what you said. If there's like a Shaco that has Guardian Angel and Shaco jumps on Teemo, Teemo's going to try to shroom the Shaco and the Shaco dies. And then he'll absorb another cast the moment he wakes up. And while you do disable your opponent's backline assassin, it's like you said, it's a lot of wasted DPS. So something to be mindful of when you're playing.
Yeah, for sure. So jumping over to take a look at what Tabzz is doing right now. He's the one I believe that had that Aurelion Soul up and running, which he does indeed.
Wow, this
Oh,
Echo
dude.
is unbelievable. Shojin with a Dark Star, but look at that Aurelion Soul go off with that giant wave of Starship Cruisers.
Oh, it's so
The
close.
longer the fight goes, Aurelion Soul gets more powerful, and you can see the Ludens splashing major damage with all of those ships. Ended up being just enough to go for one big AoE sweep. So Tuttek, that did not work out for him despite how good it looked in the early part of that fight.
It's really cool for Tabzz actually to just go straight up rebels with the Aurelion Soul carry. That is something that I can't remember the last time I saw that in a tournament game. But hey, if you get the Aurelion Soul too and you get the items on him, he can be really really strong. And it also, again, looking back at what binary started this, it lets you itemize Aurelion Soul and the Jhin a little bit more, not Jhin, the Jinx a little bit more flexibly as well. So it's kind of cool. I don't know if it's gonna be lobby winning. Like, it doesn't seem like a comp that can win games, but it definitely seems like something that could land him a top 4. We'll
Right.
see.
Like, I would actually advise many people who don't necessarily like to play meta compositions to explore playing Rebel Jinx compositions.
Yeah, I think that's
Kind of like what you
reasonable.
said. We don't really particularly see it climb very or do very well in tournaments. The last player to do it was probably a week ago when Soju was playing Rebels with Jinx, and even then he was focusing more on the brawler blaster aspect of it, while splashing in Rebels and sometimes going Rebels as well.
Yeah.
Uh, and it does seem like particularly dependent on both getting Jinx and Aurelion Sol to 2-star, which feels just as difficult as going for like Jhin and Xerath 2-star because of their rarity cost. So the payoff isn't nearly as high, but the benefit is look at how much damage you can pull out
Jeez.
if it goes uncontested. That Shaco has to take down Aurelion Soul with no rapid fire cannon. Oh, but he wakes up and bursts because Aurelion Soul flies right next to it anyways. What an
Oh.
unlucky moment for Tabzz.
Yeah, I don't think this Malphite 2 is going to be able to do either. So Tabzz does lose to that Ghost. And we're getting a really tight lobby now. Tuttek and Monphis out already in 7th and 8th. Kalsir soon to follow. So I think the question is, can Tabzz kind of keep it up? Because if you look at our two German players, NarkezTFT and DarkHydra, they've been kind of slowly moving up through the ranks. They were 6 and 7 for a long time, but they've started to kind of put some of these compositions together, and it seems to be kind of sustaining them. So we'll see. It's tight. Everybody but a SwellerTiger and teachmeshreddin might be sweating a little bit now, but we'll see what happens.
You can kind of see a little bit of the downside of having Ezreal hold that shroud, though, because he doesn't get to apply red buff more than one time at most based off his blaster activations, but it might be enough anyways just to stall. He didn't get the best shroud, and it doesn't really matter because the Jinx is still able to clean up most of it,
Sure.
except for that backline Jhin, which seemed to be benefiting off that Star Guardian jewel. You don't really get to see Star Guardian Jhin very often, but the benefit is if you get the Janna in, then all of a sudden Jin's damage becomes true damage every single time you shoot.
Yeah, that gets to be pretty massive damage if you can land the Janna. I suppose another thing with Shroud just not getting a lot of value against that composition is that Teemo casts so quickly that the initial cast that's slowed down by the Shroud is just not going to be all that effective. So just kind of one of those matchups where that item isn't quite as good as other ones.
Does find a Quicksilver, which can be good for that Jinx in the corner. I
Definitely.
think if I'm Tabzz as well, I really need to level and play this Janna somehow. I would also contemplate if we can find better uses than Blitzcrank and Ezreal right now. But Blitzcrank does end up being pretty good in a weird way because most people don't really acknowledge him at the moment because of how unpopular brawlers are.
Yeah.
Mystic is good
A lot of people don't
here,
account for him,
Mystic
and
is
they aren't
trash
positioning
here,
around
Mystic
that
is good
Blitzcrank.
here,
I think this
yes.
lobby has a lot of scouting, but
Mystic is-
either way, it
No, I
is something
think it's
people may not
actually
be
Celestia.
expecting. We're going to Narkez view now. Narkez barely holding on at third
Right.
place at the moment.
This Jin.
Yeah, but he is
Yes.
win streaking, implying that he is one of the strongest people in the lobby. Gets a sword breaker off of the cane, which is not particularly very useful. He has good items, but he is missing a key unit in Janna to really make this composition sing.
Yeah.
Instead, he's playing a Xayah at one
Uh-oh.
star just to have those Celestial.
Well, the Shroud did hit his Xerath, so that cast was slowed down a lot, and it looks like that might have been enough because Shaco's not going to be able to carry the rest of this. So Narkez takes a big hit, down to 3 HP, and you do wonder if that Shroud had not hit the Xerath, that round may have gone very differently.
Yeah, most certainly. I think that's partially what is so scary about Shroud right now, which is that it can win or lose you the fight, depending on
Ooh,
what
there's a
side
Janna.
of the Shroud you're on.
Yeah, so he finds a Janna. All right, it is just a Janna 1, but it is a situation too where like when he sells it. Okay, so not interested in going for the combo that a lot of people are going for right now, deciding to rely on that Lulu instead. Doesn't want to swap the Ashe out to lose the sniper buff for Jhin. Are you surprised that he decided to not go with the Janna?
It just doesn't. He doesn't have an opportunity to play right now because I think he feels his front line is too weak, and Janna would be good as a 9th unit. But
Could
for
be.
now, it might not even matter. He's going up against a Cassiopeia at 3-star.
Yep, that's right. It's a Cassiopeia with a lot of time to do damage as well. Shaco stuck on this Nautilus or stuck on the Jace for a long time, and it doesn't look like he's going to be able to turn around. So Narkez will be exiting in 5th place. No, 6th place. Both DarkHydra and Narkez out. So Team Germany out in 5th and 6th in game number 1. So, you talk again a little bit about that momentum that Germany needed to keep up for day 2, and this ain't it.
Not a good start for Team Germany, finishing both in the bottom 4, while we do have at least players that got eliminated early, like Tuttek from Poland. They still have their teammate, and Monphis, of course, from Italy, still have their teammates
Sure.
in the top 4.
Yeah, that's right. Teachmeshreddin from Poland. SwellerTiger, whose view we're looking at right now, from Italy. And then Tabzz and kalsir from Netherlands. The remaining 4 players in the lobby right now. Teachmeshreddin going up against SwellerTiger. See if
I'm intrigued by this no echo composition of cybernetics having like units like Reven hold the Hextech Gunblade in anticipation for it, and I feel like it's just going to start falling off pretty severely. And this is what looks like to be a pretty significant beating, unless that I really can change things. That are the Vayne getting a huge damage crit there onto the Cassiopeia. Is it enough?
It was almost enough, I feel like. The Vayne just kind of got stuck in the other damage and wasn't able to get out. If that Lulu ult had not happened, that Vayne would have absolutely cleaned up. But not the case. Full item carousel now, as we are on 6-4. Couple item components to choose from as well. What do you go for if you're SwellerTiger here? Gonna go with the blue buff, I guess.
Yeah, I want to prepare the way for Echo because right now is the Hail Mary attempt. You can look at his match history. He hasn't won a single fight since stage 6, which with a 10 to 12 baseline damage means that he was at 40 health or so, 45 health, and now it's down to 9.
Yeah.
He really needs a desperation attempt. Finds the Echo. That's huge.
Can he make the swap comfortably, though? Item-wise, it should be okay.
Okay.
Let's see.
I mean, this works. The only thing is that he has such a spread out amount of damage. It's kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none. He's like evenly balanced, which makes it good if the fight lasts longer and no one dies, but worse if he's reliant on one carry to put out big damage.
Yeah, and now he's going up against that devastating Aurelion Soul from Tabzz. Everybody gets hit by the big ultimate too. Aurelia, get onto the. Okay, she got into the Aurelion Soul. That's enough. All right, so he beats the Ghost at least.
Yeah, that was huge. The big thing of that fight was Vayne was able to stay
Oh,
safe and avoid the Gnar sweep when he
Tabzz
transformed
out.
Mega Gnar.
Yeah. Wow, Teach Me Shreddin has been he doesn't need anyone to teach him Shreddin because he has been shredding the competition so far in this lobby right now. 52 HP still remaining as a SwellerTiger only at 9. And I think it's going to be extremely difficult to beat the comp on the other side. You've got things like obviously the Cassiopeia 3 for Teach Me Shreddin, but you've also got things like the Soraka with Shojins. There's just going to be so much healing coming in, and where Cybernetics is specifically a composition that relies on sort of grinding your opponent down, aside from the burst from Aurelia, it's going to be really, really hard to beat this, I think, if you're the Cyber player.
Yeah, that's right. Cassiopeia versus Vayne both are tier 3 carries that can output lots of damage, but they both need time. Wukong gets to the backline and stuns Vayne just for a brief moment. The Urgot's trying to pull that backline Lulu,
Oh,
which would be a big deal, but she survived just barely. But it might be just too much pressure
wow.
coming the other way, and all of a sudden the Cybernetics player showing some life here for SwellerTiger.
That's crazy. The Aurelia was able to get back onto the Cassiopeia a lot faster than I think you would expect without having that infiltrator spatula. A lot of times when you see that matchup, the Aurelia just gets stuck on the tanks, and then just everything dies while the Cassiopeia repeatedly hits the same tank over and over again. So pretty great that he was able to get back there with that. And now it's on him to sort of like make sure the positioning is as such that he can kind of complete that or continue to do it rather.
Yeah, it's tricky when your opponent has an entire backlined composition outside of like one or two champions because it does feel like it's effectively random how to position them.
Sure.
He can just kind of swap sides super easily, and he has pretty much two things in mind, which is to keep Vayne safe and to position Thresh in a spot where he can, maximize the amount of pulls that he has. Urgot 2 on the bench as well, which increases the chance that he's going to be able to win because if he can get that Urgot in and snipe either the frontline tank like Wukong, or even better, land on Cassiopeia. That'll be his ticket to victory.
Yeah, I like putting the blue buff on the Riven as well, rather than something like the Echo one, because that Riven now is going to be casting immediately. You can see her just jump over the vanguards there and get a lot of more damage in the back line. And suddenly, this Cassiopeia, she got hit with the Ash arrow. The tanks scooted over and kind of let that one through. But is it going to be enough? Cassiopeia under a little bit less threat. The GAs going off on both sides. Jace comes in, slams the Aurelia, so she's down for the count. Cassiopeia is still
Yeah,
firing strong. And yeah, this is just going to be one of those matchups where it can just go either way positioning wise. And that's enough. Teach Me Shreddin, a lot of HP, a lot of chances to win that round. And he does, takes first place in lobby number 1.
yeah. Once again, in these like final scenarios, there's so many things that I want to talk about of like how that battle ended up transpiring the way it did.
Mhm.
But the number one thing that to pay attention to is that Vayne got stuck on Wukong, and that's like the hardest thing as a anti tank unit like Vayne to get stuck on a high health CC unit like Wukong that was coming and disrupting everything. Didn't even
Right.
finish killing him by the time the fight started or fight ended. So a really good job done there for our first lobby, and Poland puts himself in a pretty good spot to start off our last day of groups.
Yeah, let's check out the standings now after one game down on our individual standings list for the day. Obviously, Teach Me Shreddin at number 1. I think another thing to take note of course, everyone's watching Team Germany. They are down at 5 and 6 right now. DarkHydra and Narkez finishing a little bit less than I think what they would have preferred. But for the day, that is cool. That opens things up a little bit more than people may have been expecting. And although Germany was by far the dominant team yesterday, that may not be the case today.
Yep, that's right. So, we'll see if Poland can continue to climb because they just do a couple more of those and they will be able to leapfrog Germany. And that early start that Salvyyy and Sasto was able to do was fantastic. Some of the best performance we've seen out of any duo in any 2v2 auto battler competition. This goes back across all kinds of games like auto chess.
Right.
And overall, it's like a really great start for Poland to make that comeback if they can.
And so you can see the benchmark is 94. If any of these teams get 94, that at least bumps them over Team Sweden, gets them into the top 4 in points overall. That's kind of the benchmark people are going for. But France close by as well. 98 points for France, something that's definitely possible to overpass. We thought Germany might even be taking some aim at Spain and Portugal, but I think that kind of remains to be seen.
Yep, that's right. So, let's go ahead and focus on what the Netherlands and Italy need to do. Have you been observing any trends with that team where you feel like they can improve some certain things to maximize your chances to get out of groups here?
I don't feel like we've seen enough of them yet to really, identify any specific thing, they need to do to improve. And it's only been one game with these players anyway, I suppose. But I mean, teachmeshreddin at least has or you were talking about Italy and Netherlands. It's tough. I feel like we just need to see more.
Okay, fair enough. I do feel like these teams, like the Team Italy and also for Netherlands, have been kind of struggling to hit their compositions. If you go back to
Hmm.
yesterday, where Netherlands, like players like Higa and mingzli, were kind of struggling to get their compositions online. Even then, they weren't necessarily choosing compositions that, when they would hit their power spike, would be able to go win streaking. So, I do wonder what the strategy is for Netherlands and Italy moving forward is, because sometimes we've seen really good performances out of Italy, but it's kind of like short lived. Like Luque did really well one game and then got like seventh or eighth the next.
Yeah, it's been kind of up and down. We're gonna jump on board of Tabzz as we go into the next game. Trying to see what icon that is in the top. My screen is pretty blurry. Star cluster. Oh, okay. I was trying to find Tab's stream here. Anyway, there we go. Okay, so early Fiora for Tabzz with the gloves. Probably an item you might want to remove later from that Fiora, of course, but it's a good item start.
Yeah, I think that, it's generally accepted that tier and sword and belt are probably the best things to start with. You could justify a couple of other things like the glove and the vest because they have, their situational uses. But overall, like when you have Star Cluster as a galaxy, it does make you reevaluate how you want to approach that early game in general. Because this is one of the few galaxies where you start thinking a lot about the champion on the carousel, not just what is the item that you're trying to go for. Which is funny
Right.
because it comes full circle. When you're first playing TFT, and the first time you see the carousel, I think most players, I would say like 9 out of 10 players who first start the game, start immediately thinking about, oh, I just want this champion because it's like good and the item's a bonus. And then as you learn, you realize to invert that. And then when we go start Cluster Galaxy, we re-invert that back to normal.
Right. And that kind of is the intent, is to sort of get players to think differently. I suppose that kind of the intent of every galaxy is to sort of make players approach the game differently. But this one really does in the carousel rounds. You can find a lot of 3-star units that you wouldn't normally go for as well. If you get one off the carousel and then hit a bunch in the shop, or, you see like 2 on the carousel, that's 6 already. So you can do some kind of like funky things as far as working in some unique 3-star options with this as well.
Yep. Does have this early remnants of a Zaya Blade Master carry. Does have that early Vayne as well and a Caitlyn. But he also could make gold if he's willing to
Yeah.
sell everything.
I know you prefer to
Tough
make
spot.
gold in these situations. I think in
Well,
the past there was a time where, Vayne would be a 3 cost worth holding on to, but I'd be kind of inclined to sell here as well.
the problem is that in order to sell, you have to sell everything. I think except for one unit because it's three,
Yeah.
four, five, six, 10. Yes. So you have to sell everything, and that feels like too much because you're holding Nocturne pairs, Caitlyn pairs, a Jarvan pair, and those are probably the 3 best one-cost units to go for early game.
Hmm.
Uh, i so I would definitely be in that same position as Tabzz, where it's like, yes, I would totally am down to explore that possibility of going for 10 gold, but what you have to give up in response feels really bad if you do that. And then the other side of it too is if he's just going to commit to the losing streak, he off the carousel and just play 3 cybers and have that vein. Or
Yeah.
he can just simply eco up and try to lose streak and then pivot into cybers, which is always risky, but we've seen it happen before.
Very true. Drops the gloves onto the vein. Ideally he'd be able to kill 1 unit. Doesn't look like that's going to happen though. He's running into 3 2-star units from Monphis on the other side already. So the loss streak will continue. And yeah, he'll just ditch his Zayas to hit 10 gold. That makes a lot of sense.
I mean, a vein that doesn't have cyber buff, that has a sniper buff that with a unit that closes the gap like that, I don't think
Yeah.
a critical strike is going to change much. I think that's more. You know what it feels like to me? It feels like Tabzz is more declaring his intent early, which is
Hmm.
I have this early vein. I'm going to try to see if I can go cybers, and if you want to contest me, you can contest me. But this is what I'm leaning at, and what that does is actually kind of puts the rest of the lobby on notice, which is if they see a vein and they don't have like the real good items or the units to support it, they might just lay off of it.
Yeah, that's a real thing. And sometimes that's where something like pinging your board comes in handy too, right? Where you want everybody to know that and you want them to be affected by it. Because he does have arguably a great vein item start in that he can make a last whisper, and he's got another gloves after that to make an infinity edge.
Yeah, I think that Infinity Edge in general is still a really good item, but most people still prioritize that last whisper, so I anticipate a bow coming out here.
Yeah. It's always last whisper first, for sure. Because you can always do an alternative as well. If you end up with a couple swords, you can do a death blade maybe, or you can do something else, giant slayer. If you find something else you want to use the gloves on, you end up with like a second bow and a sword. So we'll see. But it does seem like cybernetics is one of those compositions where you do kind of need a stronger start than some other ones because it is so 2-star dependent. What's he going for? It's got to be the sword. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just any sword
Huh.
too. It's
Yeah, it's okay. So he had a chance to go for the bow for the last whisper, but he went for the sword. And I guess last whisper is generally the item you want to build first on Vayne, but sword is maybe the more highly contested item that he might feel that he'll have a harder time to pick up later. What do you think about that? Because we just got done saying that last whisper was like the one that everyone builds first because it generally is, but he goes for the sword.
Yeah, it kind of depends on like if he wants to even still stay open to that possibility of playing like Jin and playing like Dark Stars. You could totally just use this as a temporary item holder.
True.
But unless you see a lot of vanguards in the lobby at the moment, or even early Bramble Vest, you really don't need that last whisper. So maybe that's just a read on the lobby saying, okay, I don't see that many people going for it. I can prioritize the sword, which is harder to get than the bow right now.
Yeah. Well, teachmeshreddin, a little bit of Vanguard Infiltrator action. Finds the early Shaco, and he's got the Syndra. So, looking at his items, the items don't really push him in any specific direction. And he's got a couple possible carries that he's found. He's just sort of using to kind of like feel strong. But he's open to a couple different directions, and I think it's always a good feeling where you've got a solid sort of like he loses that round, but a solid sort of like set of good units early. And you can just sort of use those while you're deciding things. Finds a Jin. Okay. So
That
hmm,
is huge.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so big. I think that, there's very few champions like that could impact his decision on how he wants to maybe play the mid game. But I mean, now that you had that early Gen 1, you just have to find any other generic sniper. If you find an Ash, it's even better. And
Well,
then you don't have to roll down anymore at stage 6.
also, if he finds a Jarvan, suddenly he's got Jarvan with Warmogs because he's got the 2 belts sitting on his bench as well, which might be a little bit tricky. There's a lot of Jarvans in the lobby, like always on 10.14. But something to think about anyway.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Intrigued by his position to not play the Jin. I think he wants to commit to the losing streak. That has to be it. There's no other reason to do that other than the fact that he wants to intentionally lose a 4th round in a row and collect his extra gold for doing so. And it's a big deal. Getting 3 extra gold is massive as opposed to
Yeah.
potentially snapping it for 1.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to just ride that loss streak into 2-7 here. for that reason.
Right.
Yep. But I would imagine it's going to be, unless the items are like totally terrible for it, I would imagine it's going to be something Jin related going forward, something Darkstar related.
Right. So, quick scout of the lobby shows that people still have a couple of builds open, although some players have committed to things like Blue Buff and Rage Blade, heavily implying that they want to lean towards those Ashe/Xerath builds or go for the caster-based compositions featuring Teemo, Syndra, or the Cassiopeia.
Right. Finds a tier and a rod. Okay, so not the greatest Jin items. Those can work okay on Ashe. They can be part of items that can work on Ashe and then get transitioned into a Xerath or a Janna later, I guess. But probably not what teachmeshreddin was hoping to see.
Yeah, so, I think a lot of people might look at the decision to just stay low eco there instead of sell out. He had an opportunity to hit 20 gold, which would consequently help him hit 30 gold right here.
Sure.
Which would consequently help him get to 40 gold and then eventually go for very clean. And he ends up selling everything anyways. It was a lot easier to make as a call from our perspective because we have hindsight and we can see everything with that lens. But he's holding not Jin items. He's holding actually items that are better for Cassiopeia. So I actually completely understand why he held it, especially with that Nico's. It's just really tough now because when you look at these items, it's like, okay, I'd rather have Teemo. You don't have anything to put on the Jin, and if you do spend your carousel getting a sword for the Jin.
Hey, well, there's Teemo.
That's huge.
Yeah, he finds it, and he needs it pretty bad. There's a Bard. He's one away from having Astro, but he doesn't have a lot of gold. So maybe you sell a little bit here. Oh, he finds a Nautilus. Wow, that is
Major.
So big. That is such a big power spike for his comp if he can keep that Teemo safe. Yeah, you can see him protecting it there.
Yeah, I think I'd still play the Poppy just to have extra. But yeah, I think we can maybe jam this Morello onto Teemo.
Totally.
And play the tier. Find a way to recover eco. 2 Jaces is hard to give up. I guess if you're not going to make 20 gold by selling the Jaces, you don't sell anything here then.
Yeah. But you can see already the difference in strength from this comp. Teemo just doing a lot of damage. Jin getting more time to fire. He's gaining meeps. It felt like teachmeshreddin was a little bit directionless and that the game was pushing him one way with the units and pushing him another way with the items. But finding the Teemo, getting Astra online is so big.
Yeah, and this karma is pretty significant as well because now it gives him mystics, which should help him avoid a Syndra snipe, right? A lot of the big things that you're worried about. What? Just rolls and lands the other Teemo. That's got to be an instant Nico, right?
I would think so. Sometimes I feel like you kind of suffer if you don't have the Gnar too early enough with this build. But yeah, finding Teemo too seems pretty important right now.
Yeah, the only
he doesn't
reason why I
need it.
advocate for that is because he already has snapped his losing streak. So you're actually incentivized to start winning again.
Right.
And the more you also the harder you win, make sure that the least amount of punish for this Bard possible. Because part of the issue is that Bard is great if you can not lose by too much. But I think he would have won here with Teemo, and he would have still gotten all those meeps, which I think he's holding on. But in the end, I think I would have slammed.
Fair enough. Well, back to another carousel, and we've got a couple good ones to choose from. I was gonna say there's a Jace with a chain vest as well. There's a lot of good choices here.
Yeah,
with the chain vest too.
You can't really pass up the Jin because you have a Nico. So you can Nico Jin or Teemo. Both are completely reasonable to get 2-star early.
Right.
I think that I was also incentivized to 2-star Teemo early because you also already have the Astro buff. That's one of the biggest things that Teemo has to overcome as a hurdle, which is when we're talking about Teemo as a unit early on that struggles is because he doesn't have the Astro. So I think that's a really good thing to consider moving.
So Tuttek, his teammate, who we are on board with now, did manage to grab the Jace 2 with the chain vest, was able to turn that into a Jace 2 with a GA. which is one of the better items on Jace, because you can usually get a second ult off if he comes back. And so this is a little bit of a it's an interesting composition right now, because it sort of looks like it wants to be, Vanguard Mystic. It also has a big protector element right now, but it's basically just trying to win through tankiness and Jace damage, it seems like at the moment. Caitlyn's in the back a little bit, but it's interesting. Maybe Dark Stars will be the direction, but he doesn't really have the items yet. So just kind of playing strongest board at the moment, and doing okay with it. 76 HP, nothing to complain about too much.
Yeah, so I think that, the win streak here when you have a low eco, this is actually pretty interesting because this style is reminiscent of that of Korea, which they like to play very aggressive and low eco. It's kind of rare to see like top lobby leaders in Korea have more than like 30 gold. And they like to keep rolling. It's a lot of risk and reward though, because if they end up losing some of these streaks, they're in real big trouble. So, but for Tuttek, for example, part of the reason why he's playing so aggressive is to protect that win streak. And if he's able to maintain that through the PV round, he's going to be back in business.
Yeah. Runs into Kalsir, who has that pretty strong Ashe in the back with the Shojins and the Ginsus. That's going to be tough to get through. I mean, Jace is just like perma-CC'd right now. And Mordekaiser getting the back lines now. Ashe down. And that GA on Jace really coming in handy, actually. Giving a shot here as his Rakan falls. Oh my gosh, Mordekaiser's huge. If you can get another ult off.
Mordekaiser is a very reasonable 2-star tank that incidentally becomes a carry when you have Dark Star buff because everybody else dies. And so he kind of has that same effect that RyKo does, which is like if he's the last man standing on your team, he can make surprising comebacks because his AP that he gets from being a Dark Star and everybody dying scales his shield, which also deals damage. And it's like this really funny thing where like Mordekaiser 2 is like very secretly a very good backup carry option.
Yeah, and I believe he got buffed in 10.14 to sort of like give him that that power a little bit more more vividly than he had before, because he's always kind of in that role, but the buffs he got fairly recently kind of pushed him over the edge, I think. RyKo 2. All right, so there's a little bit more damage, but it's kind of an awkward situation because you don't really have a great applier of the red buff, So I wonder if maybe you try to find like an Echo or something to put in this comp to get Infiltrator and then have a good red buff user.
Yeah, so part of the thing about For Protector is it's so open that you really could play it so many different ways. Protector Infiltrator is a legitimate build, especially closer to previous patches. Excuse me. I don't really see too much of people doing it now, though.
Right. It's just kind of trying to think about what he can put together with this board that he's got. He ends up putting the red buff on RyKo. Because it is an interesting situation that Tuttek has sort of like put himself in, where he's got a strong front line, no doubt, but he doesn't really have anybody doing the damage, Maybe he doesn't need it. Like, that was still a close round against DarkHydra regardless, but at some point he's going to need somebody in there doing damage. Real damage.
Right. It was primarily a win streak composition that ran out of gas, largely because the items slammed don't exactly transition smoothly. Now that being said, he finds a unit like Jinx in the shop with 3 rebels. It's kind of asking a lot to completely pivot from here into like a rebels, but if you look at like the item composition, it actually fits rebels fairly well because you can place these AP items onto the starship for Aurelion Soul, and then you can give like a GA and red buff to Jinx, and it still would translate. So I wonder if he's even considering that whatsoever, because it feels like he's not giving it a second look. And I don't blame him, because those kinds of compositions are really easy to lose control and then just die while you're transitioning.
Right, exactly. Because he would have 1-stars. I guess he would still have the Infiltrator buff if he kept a RyKo and got the Zed in there with that. But it's one of those things where it's like, it probably, from his perspective, seems like too much of a risk, right? Giving up those 2-stars, he at least has something semi-strong going, and it's, even if it's not working, sometimes it's hard to give up on the comp. Finds Thresh for the Chrono, but he doesn't have a whole lot of great targets to pull in yet. Like the Soraka and the Nico, both are useful with their spells, I guess. Jarvan is and Karma are okay, but the Thresh doesn't really do a ton to improve the power of his composition.
Right. And so this is another side of the argument of potentially looking for other pivots and options, which is that Tuttek did a good job preserving his HP early and win streaking. But the way he's losing is as if he's transitioning anyways. He lost by like 5 or 6 units on the previous battle. And if that's any indication, then he's taking a ton of damage. Although he's going up against a composition that whose front line completely crumbled. teachmeshreddin has almost no front line whatsoever to protect his Teemo and his Jhin. So everything ends up being okay. So Tuttek seems to be right in that middle. He's good enough to punish people who are transitioning, but he's not good enough to beat people who got online early. And that might be a problem later on, considering that people are going to start to get really powerful on the 4-4 carousel in StarClan.
Yeah, I mean, what you just described to me sounds like a top 6 comp, where it's like you're not going to take 8th, but you're probably not getting in the top 4 once people come online, like they're about to, after this carousel probably. So he's got to make some sort of transition. Oh, he doesn't grab the Aurelion Soul. That was maybe an option there. Picks up the Chain Vest on the Ahri. But you can see, like, I mean, head in his hands. He knows he's in trouble here.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation, especially when full items drop that you're not exactly expecting. Like you've been building all this anticipation up, and by all means, he would have taken a belt and a vest individually. And so, sometimes you get more dogged, and you got to adapt to it. But I think those kinds of games where you're able to do well with it are equally satisfying. So I totally understand when more it's like just adapt, and when you do end up getting the unusual curveball like that and make it work, it's very satisfying.
Oh yeah, when you can like smoothly transition into something that just like dominates the late game, you feel so good. On board with Monphis now from Italy, and he has got a little bit of Vanguard snipers action going on. There is that Shaco on the back line though.
Yeah, Shaco getting to that Ash would be disastrous for him. And yeah, Shaco too still doing a pretty good job carrying for Tuttek. Can't really forget that. Even without items, Shaco still is very threatening. And the red buff is just kind of like utility. It's not super amazing, but
Sure.
I mean, he can use it. It's not like it's the worst thing.
Yeah. So this is kind of an interesting composition that Monphis has right now. He's got kind of a mismatch of strong things. He's got like Shojin Dash. He's got Ziggs 2, or not, Fizz 2 rather. He doesn't really have the cybernetics buff or anything like that going. He's got Lulu in, but it's only a Lulu 1. The sorcerer buff, is there, but it's not doing a ton for him. So it's another composition where, it seems like it does okay in the mid game. It's got some strength to it, but you need to kind of find a firm direction here.
Yeah, I would say that Monphis actually has pretty good direction. It's just that right now he's holding what feels like 20 pairs on his bench. It just feels like everything that he really wants in the game is on his bench because they're 1-stars, and he's trying to play his best board. And while it did a good job preserving HP throughout stage 4, as you can kind of tell with the trend, he's losing his position as top in the lobby. And this is a position that I think a lot of people debate, which is should you be selling those units, ecoing up back to 40? Like put the Jarvan and the Rakan in, sell things like the Zoe and the Leona, very mediocre 2-stars at best, and just roll to find Jhin, because you're not going to play Last Whisper and Sword onto TF that much longer. But he ends up just kind of waiting. Another argument to make is to have bench space in case you do end up getting a box that gives you things like that Jhin, but just because sometimes the game's offered.
Yeah, sure. All right, rolling down a little bit. Maybe looking for that Jhin. Yeah. Gnar. It almost seems like he's not really sure, what he wants to pick up at this point, because that's 4 rolls and he hasn't bought a single thing. And that's a little bit worrisome to see sometimes. Finds a Kog'Maw, or not the Kog'Maw, the Karma 2. Zephyr on the Fizz. But it didn't seem like that roll down really did a whole lot for him, you know?
Yeah, and it's kind of like what we're talking about, which is that he had too many options, and he was really afraid of like losing a strong front line. But look what happened. Tabzz is at level 8, and 7 units survived. So it's like you might as well have sold the bench or sold the front line, transition, have better eco for 2 rounds now, and then you could aggressively roll, and your game plan is much more narrow. Because again, he's like trying to adapt based off every shop, and he doesn't have the time to think. The caliber of the lobbies that we have, you get very few margins for error, and that
Yeah.
could be one that costs him big.
Well, this is a Janna. Is there a world where you swap the Janna out for the Ashe? Maybe.
Uh,
Just
Probably
right now, you know?
not, right? Yeah,
That's
probably not because he doesn't like. If you do swap it out, like, what are you trying to Janna? Like his Shaco? That's
Shaco, I
legitimately
guess.
the only
Yeah.
form of damage he has in his entire composition. So it's
It's
like it doesn't even make sense to do that right now.
it's bad. It's real bad. It looks like he may win this round,
Yeah,
but he's
it's different
definitely
than
on a knife's edge. That was like one of the last 3 or 4 rounds that he came out on top, and he lost a lot of HP. Like you mentioned earlier, lobby leader, but now down to 38.
Yeah, this stuff happens all the time. But what's important to kind of realize is that he still has a very clear way to improve his board. Like even just playing this Karma, for example, is better because it
Right.
activates his Dark Stars and his Mystics, which is much more relevant than a 2 Vanguard setup right
Definitely. Still a
now.
very wide board. Another Janna.
Is like what are we doing with this Zoe? The Zoe has neither the Star Guardian nor the
Yeah, he
Sorcerer buff.
swaps
Okay,
it
so he
out.
ends up replacing it finally.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's one of those situations where you're kind of just crossing your fingers for a Zareth at this point, and then you can, use the Janna Zareth combo for, at least one more day before it gets nerfed a little bit tomorrow.
Yeah. It might sound like, we're being very harsh on Monphis, and I'm trying to emphasize how difficult and dire the situation is to
Yeah.
stabilize.
No, we feel bad for
And
Monphis right now.
yeah,
It's a rough
we've been in this
situation.
situation so many times, right? Which is
Yeah.
like you feel like you're doing good with the mid game, you have a lot of health, and you
Mhm.
just like lose all the way to like a 6th place.
No,
And
I
felt
I
like
feel
there's
this
a lot more.
I feel this so keenly because I feel like this has been every game for me in this patch. Like this issue right now that Monphis is dealing with is like the number one thing that's been frustrating for me with this patch where like I feel like I can play a very strong early and mid game, but then you get these situations where the direction isn't necessarily super clear or else you think it is but you don't hit it, and it's really easy to kind of have things go off the rails after a good early game, which is frustrating. And it happens to everybody, even a great player like Monphis.
Yeah, it can be really tricky to try and bail yourself out of the situation. But one of the biggest pieces of recommendations that I got when I was struggling with this, throughout my TFT like learning career, like there's been many points where I feel like I've been hard stuck in
Hmm.
TFT, and I like really need a fresh pair of eyes. And the number one thing that was recommended to me was to simplify the amount of problems that you're introducing to yourself, which is why I was saying like sell out that board, try to focus on what you need to roll down, so that way you can be a little bit more deliberate with what you're doing instead of like, hey, let me think about this option when you have like 30 seconds and wasting 3 seconds on a potential replacement for a 1 star for another 1 star isn't really going to cut it.
Right. It's one of those situations too where sometimes you just need to be like, all right, I got to play for sixth. That's the best I can hope for at this point. And
Yeah.
so then you do, sell out that bench and you just try to make what you've got as good as it possibly can be, even if it's not going to
Oh,
be a top 4 comp. Oh my gosh, DarkHydra getting
holy
slammed by Tabzz there.
cow. Three
And
star Vayne just absolutely slapping everything uncontested, despite having the Chrono Ash in a very good spot. Ash just gets
yeah.
completely overwhelmed by numbers. And DarkHydra, who looked all right before the fight, took a huge loss just now.
Well, Narkez is out too. So once again, Germany in a little bit of trouble here in game number 2. They finished 5th
Yeah.
and 6th in game number 1, an 8th already in game number 2. So all of that, the dynasty that was built yesterday by Salvyyy and Sasa is is so far in our small sample size of 2 games, struggling a little bit here in the second generation.
Well, I mean, it doesn't seem like his composition is poor by any means. It just seems like everyone else is a very powerful lobby. We're almost going to
Yeah.
stage 6 with everybody 30 life or below. That's very rare. As he gets a convincing victory over SwellerTiger, this might be enough to kill him. This definitely should be enough to kill him at this point.
Yeah, should be. So SwellerTiger out. Tabzz, 2 HP, Tuttek at 0, just exact lethal on him.
Oof.
So just like that, down to 5 remaining in the lobby, and it's going to be a pretty explosive finish.
Wow.
Red buff.
Huge opportunity finding the Shojin and the double rage blade to put onto Janna and Xerath. Right now, Tabzz looks like he might be in a position to take this lobby, and this is one of those games where we might end before we even see the 6 carousel.
Yeah.
Realistically, 3 people might die next fight.
It's definitely possible. Kind of a bummer to see the red buff, I guess. Although I don't know if
Yeah,
if you put
definitely
red buff on
bummer for sure.
I don't know. Yeah, he probably doesn't want the red buff that much.
It's a
but
bummer.
It is. Yeah. Okay. Finds the Urgot 2, which is
What?
Oh, Xerath 2. All
And
right.
a Lulu?
It may be a first at this point.
Right, because now you can Nico and Power Spike, and this is the juncture of the game where you might not have another life. Like another like a bad loss, a single bad loss from DarkHydra is the end of it, because stage 6 you guarantee 10 damage as a baseline. So I would definitely go for the Nico here.
Oh yeah.
Red buff, I don't know, goes on Lulu maybe, or Xerath, someone to just like you really value.
I'm trying to. I don't think Xerath's ability, once it activates, would spread red buff in an AoE fashion, but he does attack quickly. So you're going to be putting it on a lot of people in the same way that, like, Cassiopeia applies Morelos to a lot of people. But man, that Janna Xerath combo is so strong. Ends up putting the red buff on the Urgot. But yeah, that's an easy win. He's looking like the strongest player in the lobby right now, I think.
How much damage is this? Kalsir almost dies from 23. That just goes to show you how explosive this lobby is. 2 players eliminated. So now it goes down to the top 4. Tabzz win streaking at 2 HP. And remember, if a really bad loss comes in for DarkHydra, he is out too. Although with that Xerath 2 and that Lulu 2, I can't imagine him dying from 23 at this point.
You just got to make sure you don't get like shrouded or zephyred or something like that. But I don't see any of that in the lobby right now to deal with. So positioning wise, he does have 1 Zephyr to worry about, but aside from that, it's a pretty easy lobby to play around. Runs into teachmeshreddin, strong Jhin on the other side.
Yeah, it's a battle between the top 2 players in the lobby, which means that chances are Shreddin, if he loses, could go from 2nd to 4th place. Yeah. Although both players on 3rd and 4th are weak as well.
Wow, Xerath managing to dodge the Janna tornadoes coming in from the other side. Easy win there. Tabzz down in 4th, Shreddin out in 5th, and it's going to be Kalsir versus DarkHydra for the top spot in the lobby. But this would be big. This would get Germany back on track if DarkHydra can win this one.
Absolutely. And now he has to line up some really key things. Shen needs to absorb the hits. He needs to position Janna and Xerath safely to avoid his opponent being able to get their optimal cast as well. So spreading out his units, I like this a lot. Making sure that he can't get maximum Janna value. It might come down to these final battle here.
Might come down to who Urgot eats too. That's one of the big differences between these 2 boards right now. Janna comes out a little bit earlier for DarkHydra. Urgot doesn't really pull in anyone super important anyway. And
oh my god,
Xerath QSS on the other Xerath on the other side, but one more ult comes out. It's not quite enough. DarkHydra still alive, 7 to 5 HP, but it just seems like the QSS on the Xerath on Kalsir's side may be the difference maker.
This is tough. Would you go for that second Janna? Looks like Kalsir immediately goes for it, wants to get that Janna too. And for DarkHydra, I think he just has to pick up a mana item to try and get Janna to cast a little bit quicker. So a couple of things to note. One is that the QSS for Kalsir is huge. It means that Xerath can't get stunned in the first 10 seconds of the battle no matter what.
Right.
That being said, DarkHydra had positioned his Xerath in a spot where it actually dodged the Janna tornadoes anyways. And I thought that was going to be a big difference maker, but it didn't end up becoming the influential point of the fight. And now we're going to see once more if this can happen, because no matter what, this is the last fight.
That's a good point. You can sort of position your units based on the other Janna to dodge those tornadoes sometimes. But here we go. All right. Urgot knocked up again. It is a big part of like what Urgot eats. Oh, Urgot actually, I think he shot the Xerath and it didn't have an effect because of the QSS. Meanwhile, DarkHydra Xerath gets a lot of free firing in. Oh, and
What?
Urgot with a big eat there. Can the Xerath get taken out? Oh, the Lulu ult comes in on the Xerath, and now it's just the Jhin. DarkHydra, can he win against this Jhin? Looks like he can. He's still got the Riven, and DarkHydra gonna take #1 in this lobby for Germany. That is a big win for DarkHydra and the nation of Germany.
Yeah, really tight fight back and forth. One of the more aggressive
Wow.
lobbies that you've seen because it could have totally ended at stage 6-2 to 6-3.
Yeah.
And it's rare to see games end that quickly where they don't even get a peek at the carousel. And I like those lobbies because I think that that's around the sweet spot for TFT because
Hmm.
around that point, like people that are reliant on two-starring all their legendary units, it's very hard for them to get online. You can see both players kind of scrambling to get Janna to two-star. That was a really big deal. If either player was able to get that Janna two-star, it would have completely swung the fight. Also, I want to give a
Totally.
shout out again to the positioning of DarkHydra at the very end. It was very clever to put the Xerath in the bottom center where his opponent least expected, and he dodged a couple of Janna ults as a result. So a little bit of luck on his side, and was able to keep Xerath safe for the majority of the fight. Versus putting it in the corners doesn't exactly work out all the time.
That's one of the things I've really noticed is that, like, if you want to have the best chance of dodging Janna tornadoes and she's in one of the corners, bottom center is usually a safe spot for the early part of the fight, at least for the first one anyway, before she might move around. So something to consider. Let's take a look at the standings now that we are 2 games into our 5-game set today. And you can see teachmeshreddin still on top, got that 3rd place in round number 2, so 17 points for him. Kalsir from the Netherlands up in 2nd, tied with DarkHydra from Germany, who got a big boost after that 1st place. Tabzz from Netherlands as well, 13 points. So Netherlands making up some ground here. Narkez, way down at the bottom, needs to pick it up a little bit if he wants to help out Germany maintain that #1 spot. But I'm curious to see what the overall standings are looking like because we're getting close. We're getting close now for nations like Germany to overtake Sweden and knock them out of the top 4. It could happen next game, in fact.
Yeah, I think so. This could be the opportunity that Germany was looking for to cement their lead. They don't need to have a spectacular performance today. All they have to do is have an average performance. If they're just doing okay, 4th and 5th every game, 5th and 6th, a 3rd and 4th, no big deal. That's still going to get them an easy land into the semifinals next week. But for Poland, they need to have an above average day. For Italy and Netherlands, they need to have a spectacular day. And it was a good start. Netherlands has kind of been slowly making up that gap because Tabzz has been pretty consistent, able to sneak in that top 4 despite being at 2 HP. And we'll see, how, and also Kalsir was able to perform pretty well too. So we'll see if they can make that comeback.
Yep, that's right. Should be an exciting end to the day. There's 3 more games to go. But, again, France and Sweden kind of on the bubble. Can they stay in the top 4 and make it to the semifinals next week? We are going to take a quick break. Before we do that, shout out to juke.gg for sponsoring the tournament. If you type !giveaway in chat, you have a chance to win some RP that they are giving away. Pretty awesome stuff. And if you go to juke.gg/TFT, you can find all the TFT info you want, really, about the esport, about all the, I believe that's where all the POVs are at right now. And so just a good place to go and check out some esports in general. But as I said, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, game number 3 here at the GiantSlayer European Cup. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in a few. Welcome back, everybody, to the Giant Slayer European Cup. 2 games down, 3 more games to go. Frodan, what stands out to you from our first 2 games of the day?
The the first two games, I think that we have seen a couple of interesting styles be played right now. I think a couple of players are like trying to go for best board win streak, and then they just kind of get caught with their transition pants down, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think that those players have really good ideas, but they really need to figure out their mid to late game transition because it was kind of sad to see, Monphis and Tuttek kind of just fall off a cliff and then, bottom out there.
Yeah,
Because
let
I think they were playing excellently in the beginning, and we've all been there. And on the flip side, we saw players who are like primarily known for being godlike in the late game, like DarkHydra, squeeze out a really tight position and land in first place.
Yep. So close. But yeah, it is interesting to see even like the pro players struggle with like that best board style into, really having a problem with making the transition in the mid game to the late game. You and I both talked about what a big challenge that's been, for us in our like rise through the ladder ranks. But it's something that I don't remember feeling as keenly before 10.14. And I've been trying to kind of like ruminate about why that is as we get into our next game here. And I think one of the positive reasons why that might be is we take a look at teachmeshreddin on another star cluster galaxy is that I think the game just may be more open in the mid game, which is a good thing, but it also makes the game harder.
Yeah, for sure. And that's okay, right? Because I think these
Yeah.
players they do value that kind of skill, be a skill expression as being part of the game. So
Hey man,
I
we're
really
from
hope that that
StarCraft.
is.
We
Yeah,
like hard
exactly.
games. Yeah. The harder the better.
That's right. The more skill intensive, the better. Although I think some people would essentially say that some things are unnecessarily complex. Personally, I really like this aspect of it.
Yeah, I totally. Whenever someone tries to tell me that like TFT is too complicated because of all the items and stuff, I'm like, come on, just learn it. Like it's not hard. You can learn all the items in like 15 minutes, right? And sure, if you don't have all the item combinations memorized, that's fine. Do what I did when I was memorizing the item combination, and just have like a tab open, either like behind your game window or on a second monitor or something, and just have it open while you play. Like it's not difficult. So I think
Right.
those
For
things
sure.
that I think those things are kind of mitigatable.
Right. All right. Looks like we had a small stream hiccup, so
A little bit,
thankfully
yeah.
we're back. Hopefully, Shreddin can go ahead and pick up his loot boxes. Does end up finding it.
Yeah, he grabs
An
them.
early Shojin or a GA opportunity.
Those
Oh,
are
it looks
some
like we're not done
great
with the
items, though.
speed rounds. Yeah, these are some premium items for sure.
No kidding. Yeah. And it's another star cluster. So I always like it when we get situations where we see the same galaxy 2 times in a row because we get to see players sort of adapt to what they experienced in the last game, whether they want to keep doing what worked or if they want to try something new. So it's kind of important to kind of track that as the game goes on. We mentioned players like Tuttek, where, will he be playing a similar style where it's just like strongest board no matter what, and then figure out, what to do in the mid game. Because Star Cluster, because of the extra importance on champions on the carousel instead of just items, throws a big wrench into sort of like your standard thinking with that. What is with these items? So many good items actually for Teach Me Shredding right now. Gets the bow. Wow.
Yeah, in a way, it's like kind of tricky because there's so many ways that you could go about it early on. You could totally just jam like a Shojin. You could totally just play GA. You could also just by holding and trying to find blue buff and like lean into that direction. But it
Mhm.
seems like with these items, he's just gonna go more into the Ash kind of build. Have Zoe just hold it temporarily until he's able to get that Ash, and then maybe play that Ash build all the way to a level 8.
Yeah. I like the Shojins on the Zoe too. We kind of had to obviously because the sword was on the Zoe already, but getting her to chain cast her ultimate in these early rounds is pretty strong because they tend to move a little bit slower because the damage is being dealt at a slower pace. So is Zoe constantly throwing out those big bombs with the stuns attached to him? That's a pretty cool little tech in the early game.
For sure. I mean, back when Candyland was becoming a popular composition, people debated if you should be itemizing Zoe or TF with the Shojin before they eventually settled on TF, which means that Zoe is by no means a poor user of that.
Yeah, for sure. I think in the end, like it's just always going to be the AOE hero, the AOE champion that gets the win. So TF just by virtue of hitting more people, at once than Zoe did, kind of ended up being the priority because he's such a good like Morello's user. He just has a wider variety of items that he can be useful with. Back during that Candyland meta, anyway. Seems so long ago, doesn't it?
I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that it was a couple months ago, but yeah, a
Yeah.
lot's happened both in and out of game, to say the least.
This has been I feel like this has been a set with the most like varied metas that we've seen yet in TFT. Where, set one. Set two like had, it went through various meta sort of periods of time, but I felt like the flow of the game stayed fairly similar. The only big thing that kind of like took a right turn was when the blender meta came up towards the end. But set three has been like all over the place. Like the metas have been changing so drastically from patch to patch.
That's really interesting. I feel like this is kind of just the MO of TFT. We've had some pretty dramatic shifts where like things that were really poor in one patch all of a sudden became really good the next patch. If anything, it's kind of developed this reputation where every synergy will eventually be viable in TFT and even dominant for a patch. You just have to wait for your turn, right?
It seems that way, yeah. That is true. It's been a fun set. I've been enjoying it.
I love it. It's been my favorite set so far. And that's
Oh
saying a
yeah.
lot because there's 2019. Just not to get too far sidetracked, but 2019, my favorite video game experience was playing TFT during July 4th weekend instead of going out and celebrating because I was just having that much time or that much fun of time playing with my friends every single night for 6 hours. This is before Ranked even came out in TFT. It was when it first launched.
Oh
It was
yeah.
probably some of the most special game moments I had last year.
Like I had tried like a couple other auto battlers when the genre first came out, and then TFT came out, and I'm like, oh well, I should play this one because I actually know the characters in it, instead of some of the other ones. So I picked it up, and yeah, then I was just addicted, like playing every spare moment I could get around the other broadcasts I was doing. That was fun. I was just going 6 yordles, and I was not displeased with myself. 6 yordles,
Yes, much
shapeshifter,
to the
good stuff.
disagreement of 7 other players in your lobby, though.
Hey,
Oh,
I got those 6 yordles first fair and square.
yes, you did.
Yeah, dodging all
I
day.
like, kind of centering back onto what's happened during our little anecdotes of our first time playing TFT. Tabzz, speaking of like the first time, slamming a Rage Blade onto Ashe. And, actually, attack speed Ashe has been a big part of TFT since the very beginning, back when people used to play Rangers and then going back into Rangers in set two.
Mhm.
Overall, like Ashe has been really important as attack speed carry. And this is a really important distinction to make that I don't feel like players in North America really favor that. They really prefer instead to hold on to things like playing Ionic Spark, right? Or playing Last Whisper. Like those
Yeah,
would be like the items that you would consider playing over the Rage Blade, and yet Tabzz is prioritizing during his losing streak.
it is interesting, because it's gonna be good late with things like Xerath, but it can be good in extended fights on the Ashe as well, of course. But Rageblade just as an item fell off for a while after Kale was taken out of the game, in the set 3.5 transition. But people are kind of figuring out, now that Ashe is a great user of those items, and I feel like it's something we should have realized sooner. And I think it was there. It was just something that was overshadowed by like stronger champions again, like the Kale.
Totally. And I think that that's like a really good example, one of many that people may overlook when they just very quickly dismiss the meta as solved or figured out and like,
Sure.
blah, 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 like TFC's so stale. It's like, I can totally understand where they're coming from in terms of their sentiment, but I still think that there's a lot more room to think about the game and innovate in small ways, but meaningful ways. And I think Ashe is one of them, right? It just so
Right.
happens to line up that Ashe already slots into a composition that already is too powerful. So it's like now you can itemize yet another champion and build there, making that tree even more OP, which is why they're getting nerfed so heavily.
Exactly. I think another thing to think about too is you look at like Shroud, Shroud 2 months ago was like the
Oh,
worst item, right? And now Shroud is one of the best items. Or you look at things like Bard, right? Bard a week ago was like, yeah, he's okay. It's fun to get him early game. And now like there's a lot of players prioritizing Bard and even Nicoing Bard too on a Nicoverse. So people have kind of realized how to make the Bard give them a huge advantage in the game. So yeah, the game is too deep for the meta to generally be solved as fast as people think it generally is. Pretty good item
yeah,
drop
I
for
agree.
Tabzz here.
I agree. I think part of the reason why maybe set 3 my enjoyment has been the highest is because outside of a few very few items, I feel like everything is useful to a certain extent.
Totally.
And in situations might even be better than the traditionally good item. So I think that's been good. Item balance seems to be in a lot better spot than they were in set 2 and also in set 1. Set 1, like there was
Oh
such a
man.
big discrepancy of item power that
Yeah.
it was absurd if you like tried to play with a subpar item.
There were components where it's like, well, this is useless. It's like I get a little stat
Right.
boost and that's it. But you know what I think? I'm predicting is going to come up fairly soon. Swordbreaker. I think people are sleeping on Swordbreaker right now. I think we could see
Yeah.
it, especially with my predictions of blasters coming back in style a little bit after 10.15 tomorrow. I think that Swordbreaker's got a place in the meta. I can't tell you exactly how you should be using it, but I got a feeling that it's out there and it's usable. It's
All
gonna be
right.
big.
Well, I will let you make that prediction because I still don't. I'm still not convinced. I think Swordbreaker is more of those situational. Like if you get it off of a cane, it could be good, but
Sure,
generally not something that you build towards. So I'll be intrigued if that ends up being the case
I'll
here.
try it out.
A
I've
bar two, a Jin, Shaco, couple fizzes. This is a pretty good roll down, to be quite honest.
yeah,
From Tabzz.
finds the Bard 2 as well, so gonna be able to fast track his XP towards level 7 while still maintaining a fairly strong board. So pretty much everything you'd want from a roll down. Finding a lot of strong stuff. And yeah, 4 XP, just like that. Feels nice. And you don't mind taking a little bit of HP loss like that if you're getting 6 XP around.
Totally, and it's okay to lose that interest gold because he's getting that gold value anyways through the level 2 bard that's farming the meeps. In the
Right.
meantime, his teammate Kalsir from Netherlands also going for what looks like to be a protector ash comp of some kind, but has a interesting splash of these zigs and the rumble instead of having 2 more protectors. Usually you kind of play 4
Hmm.
protectors at this juncture of the game. But I guess sometimes you just got to play the best board, and that's really clever. I should probably look out for that more when I'm in my mid game looking for pivot opportunities.
That's one of those things where Rumble is still, maybe a little bit of an underrated unit on his own. Hard to say. Wow, that Ash nearly died to the Syndra. That was so close. If she gets one more cast, oh man. That was very close to going the other way. It looks one-sided, but Syndra can kill, possibly she could have killed the Ashe and the Jarvan at the same time, and then things really change a lot. So that could have easily gone the other way in teachmeshreddin's favor.
Yeah, I think it goes to show you the power of Demolitionist.
Totally.
Early game single target stuns is pretty significant because it impacts a higher percentage of your opponent's army. So if they have 5 units, for example, you're stunning 20% of the army, versus if they have like 9 units, you're stunning 11% of their army. Pretty big difference.
Yeah,
Those Demolitionists early are huge.
absolutely. Teach Me Shreddin, who we just saw Kalsir fight in the last round, ran and grabbed that Syndra 2 with the gloves off the carousel too. So he may be in a position to possibly pick up a Syndra 3 this game, which can be a win condition in that comp if everything else is going pretty well.
Yeah, most certainly it's a win condition. Interesting choice here from Kalsir. At the very last second, chooses to dip below 40 gold to pick up that Teemo because he has that tier.
Mm.
And, makes me think that he simply picked up that Teemo because he was able to get that tier. which is interesting. You don't really often see that choice being made. It's usually the opposite. Players are always like hoping that they could sell the unit and make over that interest gold point.
Right. Giving up the gold for possible options. So again, just kind of staying flexible. Oh, not the greatest shroud value from DarkHydra. Missing everybody on Kalsir's side, but he's got such a strong comp. He might be fine. That was a good Ash arrow, though, to stun the backline there. But it is a good old Shojin's Rune and Ash on the other side, which is going to be more than enough to help DarkHydra get the win.
Yeah, DarkHydra has the better version of the comp that Kalsir wants to play Protector Ash with Dark Stars or Dark Star Ash.
Right.
Has it Jarvan with, Jarvan 2 with Warmogs and a Shroud. I mean, that just is way better than a Warmogs on a 1-star Jarvan. Kalsir is going to have to hope for a very meaningful level 7 roll down. The good news is that he's very rich right now, relatively speaking. Like, a lot of times players are not able to hit 7 if they're kind of struggling in the mid game. They're struggling to hit level 7 with more than like 30 or 40 gold.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, he's going to be able to hit level 7 even before 4-1.
Yeah, it's going to be great because when you get that big roll down, oftentimes you can start out stage 4 in a much stronger spot. But gonna have to take another loss this round. He's gonna dip below 60 HP a little bit, and usually they say like 60 HP by infiltrators is a good kind of litmus, and he's pretty close to there. 54, middle of the lobby, so HP wise, he's not doing too bad either. Tabzz though,
yeah, I would say that I would say that in hindsight, it was actually quite unfortunate that he won that one fight due to the demolitionist, because his eco would be out of control. I think that would probably equate him to an extra 10 gold right now, which would be massive. Doesn't really want to sell anything to make that level 7 to get that natural roll, which is also totally fine. He can just do it and roll down next turn. But he definitely needs to roll, because this is way too weak of a board, and he has way too many item components that aren't completed.
Yep, especially after this. Oh, gets a good amount of gold here. Okay, so he can hit 7 without dropping below econ. Doesn't do it. That's okay. But yeah, now you need to figure things out. So he's going for the Astral Snipers build. Finds a Gnar and a second Teemo. Finds the Teemo too. All right, this is definitely getting somewhere. Itemizes the Teemo. He doesn't have the blue buff. Needs more of a front line though. That's the thing. A little bit more rolling down going on. Needs to find the Nautilus. There's another Teemo. Rumble 2. There's a Nautilus. Oh, did he get it in time? I don't think he did. No. Okay, so
look like it.
Yeah, not going to get the Astro buff. Didn't get the Nautilus or the Gnar in time.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's hard to do the roll down and get your board set up at 4-1. I think that's something a lot of people kind of struggle with. But this is costly.
Oh, geez. This was kind of disastrous.
Yeah.
I think you can sell that Teemo because you already have a Teemo too, so you should at least make 20 gold here.
Totally agree. Doesn't do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So also another thing to note is that Kalsir accidentally overleveled. He actually gave up 4 gold by investing 4 over by accident. Ooh. So just like a lot of small things that add up, it's not like one thing is like the worst mistake in the world. We've all been there, right? Even when Saint Vicious was like dominating his lobbies and got like a first, second, first, he was doing the same thing, accidentally overleveling.
Oh, dude,
that happens.
Sell the Teemo and buy the Gnar. Oh my gosh! All right, I was scared for a second that he wouldn't get the Gnar 2 in there in time.
Right, but like itemization, I think double Runins is a little bit overdoing it. I think I'd rather just have a Ionic Spark on Gnar, which is actually really important because it accentuates Teemo's damage even more. Double Runins is not going to really do much, especially if you're not emphasizing the sniper or the Dark Star aspect of it. This looks kind of disastrous for Kalsir, if I were to be quite honest.
Well, things definitely not hitting the way he would have preferred. That's for sure.
You're so nice, though.
I know. I range between nice and not nice, but I'm feeling nice at the moment. DarkHydra is the player we're going to take a look at right now. Second place in the lobby, so doing pretty well. Not on a win streak, but certainly a lot of HP to work with, and he's got a strong little Chrono Ash build started, swapping away from the Chrono now to go up to the Celestial Protector, and looks like the end goal is going to be that Xerath and Janna that we see so often right now in the meta.
Yeah, he's in a position where he leveled to 8, and if he's able to preserve enough HP, he might be able to go to 9. Because if you have like 10 to 20 gold at this juncture, you should just by normal interest be able to hit like 50 gold by 5-1 and then justify if you want to go to 5-2. The question is his board strong enough to go to 9? And I think it is with the Lulu too. If you can find an Ash too,
Yeah.
I think he definitely is strong enough to go to 9.
I agree. I think he's probably just thinking about what we've seen as far as strength and the other players in the lobby. I don't think he's going to take too many losses, if any, before he would have to start worrying about whether or not to go to 9. Should be safe with that. And you can see him doing some scouting too, because that's the thing you really have to evaluate at this time in the game is what's my plan? Do I build the strongest level 8 board I can, or do I go to 9? And in this case, again, because he's probably going to be looking for that Xerath and that Janna. 9 is a much easier place to find those.
Mm. It's also Star Cluster where if you are able to get a tier 3 2-star unit, like a Jace or something, and sell that, that's 8 gold. That's a huge gold infusion to your economy. So,
Yeah.
maybe one of those things where you can totally still justify being on the lower end of the health spectrum. But look at our lobby, Doa. 4 players. Half the lobby is exactly at 32 HP.
I've never seen anything like that before.
That's
That
so
is
close.
that seems numerically impossible, but here we are. It's going to change now though.
Well, it happens because of one player who's dominating Tuttek, undefeated. Kalsir versus DarkHydra. We kind of saw Kalsir struggling a little bit. Looks like he uses Nikos on his Jhin, and
Oh
Jhin
no.
is pulled by the Urgot. Oh
Urgot
no.
1 eats the Jhin 2. And
Yeah.
it probably would have went this direction anyway, but the problem is Kelsier takes a lot more damage because that Jin's not able to one shot, maybe another unit or two.
Yeah, Kalsir struggles continue as now, as you mentioned, we start to see some separation. SwellerTiger, NarkeztFT, Kalsir, and Monphis all bottom 4. But the good news, it's still just stage 4. You still only take 2 damage as the baseline damage, and then
Sure.
you're not going to actually take too much more beyond that.
So again, the Team Germany update, obviously DarkHydra doing fine. And NarkezTFT down in 7th again. It's been a very rough day for him so far. Let's see if he can pick it up. SwellerTiger versus DarkHydra right now. Ash versus Ash.
Oh, what? SwellerTiger's Shinzao. What are you doing, Shinzao? You're stuck in the corner.
Yeah, I don't know. He's finally getting out now, but he's immediately Lulu ulted.
Oh my god.
Saddest Jinzhao I've ever
He's
seen.
gonna win anyways because he has the Ash and the Shojin.
No,
Oh no,
it's
never mind. The
close.
Ash 1 gets over there.
It was close, but if he would have won, that's like a real swag move, right? Where it's like, hey, I'm just gonna trap my own Jinzhao in the corner. I'm still gonna beat you. That's a flex right there. But it's also something that would nearly never work. So not surprised to see it happen that way.
It turns out when you fight 7v8, you're at a pretty big disadvantage. But yeah.
Yeah.
SwellerTiger also struggling, and it just, I'm just going to kind of say it's been pretty sloppy, this lobby. There's just a lot of those small things. And
Yeah.
again, it's understandable because I make those mistakes quite frequently. Especially early game, I'm like, oh, let me like box my Cassiopeia. And turns out my 4th Vanguard can't even move, right? That happens. But this is a tournament competition. You got to you got to reduce those errors. Otherwise, your margins to get an advantage and edge over your opponent is going to be so thin, and there's no excuse really. You can't really blame the state of the game when you're doing stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, when you're one of the top players in a region, it's kind of expected that that type of thing, won't happen very often, and we've been seeing that type of thing quite a bit today. So some people are like, oh well, the casters are like way worse than the players. How can they say that? It's like, well, yeah, but it's not our job to win tournaments. You're not wrong. We're definitely worse.
Yeah.
But we don't have to be this good all the time. It's not our job.
Yeah. Well, either way,
Shinzhao's free. At least for DarkHydra anyway.
Yeah, Shinzao at least unleashed.
Yeah.
This Ash is still at a 1-star, but because he has things like, the Thieves Gloves on the Jhin and a 2-star Jarvan, like these are still reasonable units and secondary carries that he's able to really get through. And you can see just how powerful a 1-star Ash can really be. DarkHydra's on win streak.
Yep. SwellerTiger knocked out an 8th this game. So a blow for Team Poland, unfortunately. And we're gonna go
Yeah.
check out what Monphis is up to.
You mentioned that SwellerTiger from Italy kind of bombing out there. Not really a good lobby, but it's okay. We're still lobby 3 out of 5. We can bounce back the next one. It's
Sure.
all about switching gears. Hopping on board with Monphis, who's sitting top 4 with less than 28 hit points. Again, a lobby where we might see half the players eliminated before we even get to stage 6.
I feel like this is another thing I've noticed a lot more in 10.14 is just much tighter lobbies than we've seen in the past. And again, I don't have any like empirical data evidence for that. It's just the vibe I've gotten from the games I've watched, the games I've played. Going up against Kalsir now. That Ashe got hit with the rumble, but she's firing so quickly now. It goes down. Luckily, Shaco there to pick up the slack. Oh, and his Jin 1 gets the final shot on the kitted out Jin 2 on the other side. Able to win that round.
Yeah, I mean, kitted 2 with 2 Ruden's Hurricanes. Again,
Well,
it's really not super impactful. Part of the impact that Ruden's Hurricane has for Jin is that it makes his last shot hit really hard. But that's often why you really want damage enhancers with the Ruden's Hurricane, like a Infinity Edge and a Last Whisper.
right.
But having just 2 pure Ruden's Hurricanes is like all in on his full shot. And sometimes that forced shot doesn't actually do the damage that you want because there's like a shed on the other side, or like there's just like all kinds of stuff where people just walk in and intercept the shot on behalf of someone else.
Right, right. Well, Urgot with some pretty significant items on the other side right now. That Jin Zhao looking pretty scary. Shaco in the back line zone. There's not a lot being done about him. Oh, Urgot eats the Ashe.
Yeah,
And
really big.
yeah, can the Jin Zhao carry enough? Doesn't seem like it. Oh, Shaco was nearly about to get eaten, but he got saved by the Jin. And so Monphis staying at 19. He's got to win like one more round probably to get top 4. Kalsir in 5th right now with 5 HP on the bubble, the verge of elimination. Grabbing that Zephyr for Monphis is going to be, potentially very useful if he's able to hit the right people with it.
Yeah, I would say that for Monphis right now, it looks like as long as he's able to outlast Kalsir, he's in a pretty good position to get top 4. It's still not secured yet. Kalsir could rebound, and it's feasible for him to die in this stage. But like we said, 3 people already eliminated.
Yeah. The 2 Netherlands players are the only nation where everyone's still alive left in the lobby. The top 4 is 1 from each country competing today. So pretty even distribution as far as results go in this round.
Yeah, Zephyr tends to be placed on a more mobile champion like Fizz, so that way you can kind of keep moving him and keep it dynamic. It does end up committing to the Jarvan.
I guess
Okay, Jarvan could use his stats.
Yeah, hits a Soraka too, so maybe some healing denied. We'll see. Pretty good Ashe arrow in the back. Shaco already the GA popped. He's going to need to do a lot of work here. All right.
Yeah, both Ashes stun each other, and it looks like whoever gets the Ashe arrow stun train going first tends to snowball that lead.
Yeah.
And with that win, Monphis is the only player on a win streak. Tabzz almost eliminated. Kalsir.
Triple Runins for Kalsir.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
going all in on the Runins. Why not?
Sure. Why not?
If the show Breaking Bad taught us anything, it's that no half measures, right?
Yes.
That's the theme, I think. Maybe there were some other themes in Breaking Bad too. I don't know.
Science. I got it was the theme there as well. So part of the issue with placing Zephyr on your frontliner is that with Jarvan, his positioning is fairly limited in terms of his options. You might be able to go like 1 up and 1 left, but like you'll never be able to Zephyr the most important unit, which is their Ashe. And in this case, he gets to Rakan. Rakan's like okay, but this is not a good start to the fight. But we'll see if his Ashe is able to carry regardless. Ooh, that's Fizz.
Oh, the Ashe for Monphis, low health now after taking an arrow first from the other Ashe. The Shaco gets taken out. And this one may not be going as well. Oh, but it seems like the Jhin always finds a shot exactly when he needs it. That Lulu got the ult to let the fourth shot come up again for the Jhin one. Monphis kind of like laughing at the end of that one because yeah,
Wow.
that's not a round you expect to win, but all the little things came together at exactly the right time at the end. The fourth shot for the Jhin, into the Lulu ult, into giving Jhin time for another fourth shot. That's
Yeah, and I would
funny.
say that the Fizz 2 was huge for displacing because it kind of messed up a lot of the positioning that you would want for like Ashe targeting the farthest unit. So like Monphis' Ashe stopped getting targeted by the other Ashe because it wasn't the farthest unit anymore.
Right.
Just like small things like that, and the Fizz 2 ends up coming up clutch as he does many times.
Yeah, Fizz 2, kind of one of the MVPs of set 3.5 right now. Oh, there's a Xerath. All right. What else can he find here? Rolling down to 0, realizing that he's not going to have an opportunity to go to level 9 this game. So you just got to make this board that you've got right now as strong as you possibly can. Maybe get time for a little bit of scouting here, as we do have our top 4. Tabzz actually dropping out in 5th.
Yeah,
Kalsir
Monphis
making it through.
eliminated Tabzz, so that was a
Yeah.
really big win for Italy just to take points over Netherlands. So we have, is it one from each country? It looks like it.
Oh no, he tried to Zephyr Shaco, but Shaco already had 3 items, so he wasn't able to get the Zephyr on the other side like he
Oh
wanted.
gosh.
And
Oh
that is a
boy.
really bad start to that round. Yeah, I think Monphis knows what's up now. Oh, that's a rough way for this one to end.
Oh
Um,
no, it's so ugly the way. Not like this.
well, at least he took 3rd because Kalsir lost and ended up at a greater degree of negative HP. So there is that at least. You'll take a 3rd, I think, in that space. He had the right idea, right, where he sold things so that he could put his Zephyr and his Trap Claw on the fly,
Wow.
but
Wait,
it wasn't quite quick enough.
are you seeing what I'm seeing, Doa?
I just swapped to Tuttek's stream now, so I'm still digesting it. That is nearly a Xerath 3 though. I'm
Yes.
guessing that's what you're seeing.
Yeah, he is trying to go for the forbidden 3-star legendary, and I was wondering what Tuttek was going to do with his massive HP lead. He was at 100 while like everyone else was at like 40 and below.
Yeah.
And it seems like he's just been amassing resources that may never be used.
Uh-oh.
Oh, what a sad state of affairs it would be if you have 7 Xeraths
Yeah, seriously.
and you don't manage to win the lobby despite having that, because 7 is as good as 3 at the moment.
Pretty much. I can pick up the Ashe too. I almost wonder if just the Janna 1 would be better than the Ashe 2, just in terms of getting that combo online with the Xerath. It's going to come a lot slower than you would prefer.
Oh.
I guess he's got the Karma ultimate. It's fine. Yeah, you wouldn't swap that out.
Yeah, it's just like a lot of small things too, and it's
Yeah.
like, for example, not having that Janet, but his front line is like a Shin Zhao too. That's really not going to cut it at this stage of the game. So it seems like he's pretty unfavored versus DarkHydra.
Mm,
DarkHydra also has that Ashe, which finally comes down from the Zephyr, but Janna can unleash the attack speed. So it's almost
Oh,
as if Ashe is going to pick up right where he left off.
Janna got eaten by Urgot. That's huge. That helped Tuttek take the win in that round. Janna never able to actually get that cast chain going. And
Right.
to a certain extent, Tuttek is a little bit at the mercy of whoever Urgot is hungry for, right? If he eats the Janna, that's great. But if he eats someone, a lot less important, then that round may be over. And he does have a lot of eggs in the Urgot basket right now.
All right. Well, it picks up GP, very expensive unit, can immediately play this other Xerath.
Right.
Can even give that Xerath a Celestial Orb so he gets that 4th Celestial still. Rolls. Can we find it? Can we do it, team? Has the
Does
Janna.
not look like it.
Oh, no. All the
So
Jannas go
close.
back.
So close, but yet so far.
Uh,
It's kind of rough. A little bit of a stream hiccup there, but we are
He's
back.
trying to place a Celestial Orb on Ashe, but you can't. Put your Zephyr. Place your Zephyr somewhere. Okay, he's going to target the other Ashe. Excellent choice.
Okay, yep. That does help. 2 Xerath 2s. And also we got to pay attention to what Urgot eats. Came back with the GA already. He may not get another chance. No,
Right.
he will not. Oh no.
Oh jeez. Oh no, his Aerith got
Oh
pulled up by
no.
the Urgot that got pulled in by Thresh, and that's going to do it. So many hopes and dreams shut down as DarkHydra takes the lobby, and
Yeah.
that's going to be another big boon to Germany.
Yeah, that is 2 in a row for DarkHydra now, which is a pretty awesome result. You don't often see players win 2 tournament games in a row like that. I can think of there's some players on I can count the number of players I've seen do that on less fingers than on one hand so far. What like Saint did it, Kyun did it, and now DarkHydra. So let's take a look at the scores so far after 3 games down. Obviously, DarkHydra is going to be a number 1. 2 first places tend to kind of do that. It was Tuttek, of course, taking second place last game. He's going to jump up to 13, so his best result of the day by far. Kalsir producing pretty solid results. That is 3 top 4s in a row so far. 1 second, 2 fourths. So solid day for him. teachmeshreddin, same for him as well. So fairly broad representation as far as the nations performing pretty well today.
Yeah, Kalsir very quietly putting out top 4 performances and, hanging in there. But
Oh,
Germany now has
there it is.
officially leapfrogged France and Sweden, guaranteeing themselves or at least getting a top 4 finish based off of how things are going to look. And if they
Yeah.
do, they go to semifinals. So if Germany already has leapfrogged 2 countries and Poland right behind them, it's looking less likely like France and Sweden's going to be able to go in here.
Yeah, France still with a slim chance to survive if Poland performs very poorly in the next 2 games. But Sweden already knocked out of the top 4, and it does look like it will not be long before France will join them. We'll see what happens. We've got Game 4 coming up in just a moment. Nations like Italy and the Netherlands, unfortunately, doesn't look like, unless we have absolutely crazy results from them for the next 2 games, looks very unlikely that they're going to be able to make that top 4. It's possible, but just judging by what we've seen, it doesn't seem like it's got a very good chance.
Yeah, it's totally possible for Sweden to still make it, but it would take quite a miraculous series of finishes, right, for them. It would require, I think, Poland to get 7th and 8th the last 2 games, and they get 6 points total. So they'd be at 93, and Sweden has 94. And then, like, everybody else to kind of bomb out. But I think that they still might not be enough anyways, because I
I
think
think
that means other
Sweden's,
people get points.
yeah, I
So
think Sweden's
they might be
bowed out.
eliminated
Yeah.
here, yeah. Looks like they
Yeah.
are, which is okay, because I think they weren't expecting to go through after last week's performance.
Yeah, they were Sweden like had a great start, but fell off pretty hard. So yeah, won't see them in the semis unfortunately, but we still have more positions to decide. Let's start things off in game number 4. It is a Galactic Armory game with Tuttek, again our second place player from last game. So close, but yet so far from that Xerath 3. Sad to see. Would have loved to see a Xerath 3 in a tournament game, but not this time.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't really seen many 3-star legendaries, so it would have been pretty cool. But focusing on what we have here, we've got Galactic Armory in lobby number 4. It's one of the last times that you'll see Galactic Armory in this current iteration, as it's been discussed that Galactic Army will now drop 3 components instead of 2 full items.
Oh man,
To
I
start off
love
the
that
galaxy.
change. Yeah, I love that change so much because, you know, people have been like, "Oh, well, then you just slam one of those, and then then everyone sells the same item." I'm like, "No, no, you wait and see what items you get from the neutral rounds, and then you decide, and that will create an enormous variety of completed items." So, think, guys, think a little bit before you post on
Yeah.
Twitter. Like, this is a great change. Galactic Armory is going to be an awesome, awesome galaxy when it changes tomorrow.
Yeah, bold of you to assume that I get items, not just all gold start from my PVE, but yeah.
Yeah, that's you never know. You might not be wrong, but it should provide a greater variety at least.
Yeah. Well, Infinity Edge and Red Buff already kind of makes me think about anything to do with blasters or cybernetics, which is cool because this is sort of a little bit of a throwback patch. These are items that used to be heavily prioritized.
Yeah.
On the other side of things is if people end up focusing too much on their items, are they just going to leave up the good composition? And I think that kind of dynamic is what we're going to be seeing.
Right. That's kind of always the question with Galactic Armory is, do you play around the items you're given? Do you, just find creative ways to work those items into other compositions? Infinity Edges has a lot of broad uses to it. Red Buff a little bit more narrow. But man, I mean, Tuttek really getting a lot of items that seem to favor more of an AD composition. Finds a Caitlyn too, but he got a sword and a gloves as well from all of this. So could build that last whisper. Has another sword to
Yes.
spare. So he's in good shape.
Yeah. On Galactic Armory, any kind of galaxy where you're given like more things to do and more things to play ends up making damage hit a lot harder early because units like I guess Shaco gets the early game Infinity Edge. People who are trying to lose streak intentionally will lose super hard and not kill a single unit. So
Yeah.
it's interesting that Tutek's immediately leveling here and trying to go for it. Particularly because if he knew he was going to do so, you do see some people who also pre-level before 2-1. So on
Right.
1-4, they end up going for it. Also,
Oh,
very
okay.
fortunate there that the Leona just didn't absorb that shot because had
Yeah.
the Leona absorbed the ace in the hole, Tutek would have lost a 4v3, which would have been so devastating.
Oh, poor SwellerTiger. Dedicating a lot of those items early. Obviously, you can change that, but that's not a round you're expecting to lose. And Caitlyn does that. That's just how good Caitlyn 2 is still in the early game. Has kind of always been one of those best one costs to pick up because even if you're losing, she's generally going to take somebody down with her. And once in a while, you'll get wins in rounds like that as well.
I think SwellerTiger was expecting to lose. I think he actually was
Yeah,
very happy with those results. So because he didn't level, and when you don't level when you
sure.
play early, you're kind of anticipating things to go south.
You kind of wait and see what happens. Yeah. I think a lot of my games I don't level, and then based on what happens in the first PvP round, I decide to level or not.
Yeah, I think it varies between game to game. Some players will even tell
Yeah,
you that they have certain heuristics whether or not they always or never do certain things.
sure. Well, finds a couple Blitzcrank. So Blitzcrank pair early can be very strong, but Blitzcrank just doesn't find his way into a whole lot of compositions anymore. So, if you use it at this point, it's kind of a bit of a bridge unit to something stronger a little bit later. And that kind of brings us back around to the fact that you can sell things back for more gold than you could in the past. So it's less sort of like risky to combine that and use it for a while and then sell it later, which I like. That's a good change to the game that came in 3.5, that you can just be a little bit more flexible with what you use as bridge units between different parts of your composition.
Right. It's a pretty so this is there's just a lot of really interesting choices here from Tutek that has me wondering, which is that he's pre-leveling, but he's not on a win streak, and he's kind of spamming the items, but he's also playing like synergies that I think he's going to stay. So if he does end up finding things like Jin, he's just going to sell his Shaco and put this Jin in instead. That doesn't feel necessarily like a thing that lines up really well. So I am curious to see how this works out because you do see some people who want to level aggressively to get as many chances and looks at tier 3 or tier 4 units as possible. And I know who knows, maybe he finds Jinx and it's just like, okay, I'm gonna go like hard pivot there because he's holding onto units like Blitzcrank, which can be played in those Chrono Blasters,
Yeah,
or rather Brawler Blasters.
right. I'm glad we got these units because it does kind of make for an interesting situation. What's he gonna put in
Okay.
now? Blitzcrank makes a lot of sense here. You get Chrono.
Yeah, Blitzcrank is the number one candidate. His
Yeah,
early peak gave him a Victor, which is not the best. Hmm.
not especially. Just Victor, probably one of the weaker units in the set in 10.14, just in general. Certainly, I'd probably call Victor the weakest 4 cost in 10.14.
Probably in the current patch, yeah. There
Yeah,
was several patches where Victor was just like way too busted, but yeah,
right. Just
I,
10.14. Yeah.
yeah. Looks like kalsir has that early Kog'Maw. That's another unit I was thinking about early game because if you don't find the early game Lucian, Kog'Maw is one of the best carriers of items like red buff. And
Totally.
if you can lean into that, I think kalsir is in a good position to maybe just play rebel slash battlecast for a while. I was watching a lot of Aegon stream the other night, and Aegon seemed to be experimenting a lot with battlecast and trying to go like use it as a very strong early mid transition into Jinx.
Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
every time he transitioned into Jinx, it was kind of disappointing. But the early to mid game results were very impressive. So it makes me think that there's something there because if you win streak that hard early on, surely there's got to be a way for you to transition so that way you're not just like, well, I transitioned to Jinx 2 and I still keep losing. I just lose by less and then I bleed to like a fourth place. So I
So
think that there's definitely more to explore.
it's funny you say that because a couple mornings ago, I got on an alt account and I did nothing but force battlecast for like 3 hours. And I noticed the same thing because naturally you're gonna be in a lot of games. You're gonna go battlecast into brawler, brawler rebel or jinx, right? And it was surprising just how strong the battlecast stuff when you got into like four battlecast was. In the early game, I would oftentimes be in a big win streak with like a Kog'Maw 2 or something like that. But then, yeah, when you make that transition, it seemed to kind of fall off really hard. So maybe with the Jinx 2 buffs coming in tomorrow, it might be a little bit better, along with all the other nerfs to things that are very strong hitting at the same time. But Battlecast, if anything, is definitely a strong early and into a bit of the mid game sort of trajectory to take, I think, in the game right now, and it's still pretty unexplored.
Yeah, I think that I think that it's underplayed relative to how good it is, but
Definitely.
it's not that good. So I think like it's like it probably should be marginally more popular, given that people don't really give it many other looks. But
Mhm.
I don't think it should be because there's definitely a breaking point where if you start playing it too often, you're just gonna have worse results. It should be that something that you should be splashing in a little bit more often than you currently. That's kind of my reading.
Yeah, you should never really be forcing anything right now, but just in terms of the average performance that it had, was better than I expected. And I like four battlecast a lot in the mid game actually. When you throw in like a Nocturne and a Cassiopeia to go with your Alawi and your Kog'Maw, you've got and that may not seem to make a lot of sense synergy wise. And I'm talking like level 6 right now, but the Nocturne provides a good amount of crowd control. The Cassiopeia
Wow.
provides a good amount of debuffing, and it's strong against early protectors. So it's good. Yeah, it is, I think, genuinely good and underplayed. So if you find it, don't be afraid to try it. But then again, that also means you're probably on a brawler blaster trajectory, which until tomorrow you may not want to do. We'll see more of it for sure.
Yeah, I like that you're on this blaster train. It's very encouraging. Look at this positioning from SwellerTiger. Very unusual. Part of me thinks it's to avoid Shroud. Part of me thinks that maybe he's totally okay losing here, although he did hit as a Cassiopeia 2-star, but it's also a cast without a blue buff, which is just like okay. Cast without blue buff is like shockingly mediocre as a carry even at 2. You
Yeah,
kind of see that.
and she's not good.
Yeah, less damage than Xayah.
I mean, yeah, it's not, if you're relying on her to be your carry, she's definitely not great. I mean, I guess he's got the Xayah as well, and he does have the Morellos. So it seems like the primary function of Cassiopeia right now is to make other protector boards weaker when you play against them in certain rounds. But aside from that, I definitely agree that she's not going to be getting a lot done right now. Red buff onto.
This looks really unnatural, like in the sense that
Eh,
we've all been in this situation where you're like, okay, like I have like champions that tell me to do
yeah.
one thing, and I have items that tell me to do another, and
Hmm.
this looks really awkward, and I don't know how it's going to pan out for SwellerTiger because I don't think the game is giving you a good opportunity to go into Vanguard Mystics, even if it's less contested. It just doesn't seem like a good idea when you don't have blue buff. In contrast, Look at what
Yeah.
Kalsir has. Kalsir has the blue buff, so he by all means could reasonably think about compositions that require that. But Cass needs that blue buff. It can't be understated.
If you're SwellerTiger, you definitely don't want to get stuck on the Vanguard Mystic train right now. That's for sure.
Well,
So
he's kind
don't.
of committed to that. He sold the rest of his bench.
He
He rolled
did.
down for it. He
Well,
he's
he found a
holding
tier.
things that are on his bench.
So if he finds another tier off of the next neutral round, I
Right.
guess you can stabilize, but that's a big if. And tell me what you think of this. I would actually prefer to see that Infinity Edge and red buff actually go on Soraka. I think she can make more use of those from an offensive standpoint. I do appreciate that he's trying to just make Mordekaiser more tanky
What?
by giving him those defensive stats. Oh,
Wait.
huh.
He had a triple vein shop, and instead of buying it, he sold all 3 individually. That is really interesting to me. Considering that I don't think anyone else was going cybers in this lobby. Okay, there's one player going cybers.
Yeah, Monphis.
You have vein 2. That's like the hardest part about playing cybers at this part of the game.
I guess he just wasn't feeling it. What can you say? All right.
Is it possible that his teammate is playing cybernetics, Monphis?
Yeah. Monphis just got a vein too.
Okay, so
Yeah.
well, that's tough to be in a position where your teammates playing the comp that the game has kind of heavily given. Like that's a really good pivot opportunity.
Yeah.
One that
Well, it's one of those team-based sort of scenarios, right? Where sometimes you have to maybe take a little bit of a loss to, help your teammate do well. And Monfit's doing pretty good. Jumps up to 5th place right now in the lobby.
Graves 3.
Hmm.
Graves 3 from Tabzz. There's a lot to unpack from what we just saw there from Team Italy, but let's go ahead and focus on one of the cooler things out there, which is Brawler Blasters featuring a Graves 3 carry. That's right. He's not just a support unit. He is a carry in this composition. And I love this kind of adaptation to what's happening from the Galaxy. But the only question is it actually good?
Well, it's the thing. Like, how many shots is he going to get off? Really, he's got the Bramble Vest, and he's already a little bit tanky, and the blind is so huge. He's got good items for the Jinx too, so it's not like he sacrificed the power of his main carry and Jinx to power up his Graves. But I like it. Narkez is like, what is that?
Yeah,
Can't blame him for asking. You don't see that every day.
Adapting. That
I
is
guess
called
so.
adapting to the circumstances, and I am loving it. He's
Yeah.
preparing a Rebels transition opportunity. One thing that's unique to think about, which is if he does end up playing 4 Brawler, 3 Rebels, 2 Blasters, he does have a little bit more rigidity, or he's a little bit more rigid. That's not even a word. In his build, because
Rigidity?
usually like to
Kind of a
play
word.
as. Okay, yeah, sure. Usually
Yeah.
he play Ezreal, right, instead of
Yeah,
Graves.
right.
But, like, I wonder what his long-term game plan is. Is it even possible that later on in the game he sells Graves 3 because he wants to have a pivot opportunity? Pretty
I would
interesting.
almost maybe consider going 4 Blaster, which is not something people do very often because you generally need that tankier front line. But, if one of your blasters is arguably part of your tanky front line, maybe you can swing it, and go a little bit lighter on the rebels. It's
Got a
tough to
golden
say, but
gun.
yeah, the scenario is making me wonder.
Oh, very much so. It's cool. And you don't really often see this kind of stuff, so
Yeah. Oh my
very
god.
cool
You like
to
3 stars?
see. Yes.
DarkHydra.
What the heck?
He's
Hydro?
DarkHydra is just like he's gone to the past and he's picked up a shredder board from like a month or two ago, and then he's come back to the future to dominate this lobby with it.
Yeah,
He's
and
a time
it's
traveler.
looking pretty fierce. That's a Caitlyn 3, a Xayah 3, and a Fiora 3 with a Shroud.
Yeah.
DarkHydra has also rolled all of his gold down, so he's kind of in a desperate situation where he needs to win. But he also has a lot of HP. Like, this is actually a ton of HP to have as a reroll player.
Well, DarkHydra as well also has the Jarvan with the death cap, which is not something you see often on the Jarvan now, but it's something that was previously considered one of the best Jarvan items because it boosts the attack speed buff he gives people around him so much. So very old school shredder build from DarkHydra, and it may seem strange, but it is a mark of a top player when they can say, "Hey, I've got this great opportunity to very cleanly play this build that is maybe not the strongest right now, but in this form can still be dominant."
Yeah, and that's a way that you can use the Galactic Army to your benefit because I do think that players that are trying to like hard force things are going to have a little bit more of an awkward time. I mean,
Yeah.
we're checking in on how the Vanguard Mystics player is doing, and it looks like they're still not win streaking. And here's the hard part, right? This is the part of the game where Vanguard Mystics supposed to be the strongest. And taking losses like that is definitely not ideal.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because Vanguard Mystics came back into the meta because the meta shifted back into a lot more protectors being the front line, right? And in this particular Galactic Armory, you're not going to see as many protectors players because the items that started were Red Buff and Infinity Edge. So a lot of people are going to be able to easily add a Last Whisper to that and have a very good anti-Vanguard set of damage dealers, right? So it's a good comp, but it kind of just feels like the wrong lobby for it,
Yeah, I would agree at first glance. But having the red buff and the Infinity Edge encourages people to play the Brawler Blaster. You see Kalsir also with that Jinx, but the big difference is he has Jinx too. But does it matter? The Graves is
Nope.
just tanking long enough and getting that smoke screen to get the dodge chances increased so they can't hit with the Jinx, and that's going to result in another win for Tabzz.
Yeah. It's kinda wanna it's this is kinda wanna kind of why I would like to see him try 4 blasters for a little bit, because in this situation with this Graves 3, he might just be tanky enough that the extra damage from the 4 blaster buff, which did get boosted back up to 6 again, might be enough to chew through teams before the lack of tankiness from only having 2 brawlers really comes into play. So, I don't know if it would work, but I'm just curious enough that I'd kinda like to see him try it. Obviously, this is a good build, so he doesn't need to, but um, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think the problem with 4 blasters is it's not that much better than actually 2 blasters. I think if you just even math it out, if you do it like like a chart or a graph, it doesn't actually significantly boost things. Um, because the main blaster is Jinx. Like I think if you like basically calculate Jinx reset into
Right.
the equation, it's almost the exact same.
Okay.
I think that's what I read. So that's the only reason why I think like it really comes down to the same thing in both times. Just get Jinx to reset.
Sure. All right. Well, Monphis with the 6 cybernetic now.
Oh, the Zephyr onto the grave. That's a really big deal.
Yep. That does slow things down a lot for Tabs, but not enough, as it doesn't look like that Vayne can 1v6 or 1v7 right now.
Oof. Yeah, Graves 3 being super duper tanky. I like the Thresh inclusion as well. Finding that early Thresh can help really get more stuff in the way to get the Jinx reset, and having your bench with another Blitzcrank is very useful.
Right. So Monphis with the roll down now. Okay, so he does find the Vanguard, does add Chrono in there as well with the Wukong. That's going to certainly power things up a little bit. So now just kind of looking for that Ezreal. This is kind of one of the stronger non-Ezreal cybernetics, or not, what am I saying? Ezreal, non-Echo cybernetics boards. But it's still looking a little bit weak.
Yeah, primarily because it seems like the carry is still just Vayne. Irelia at a 1-star really doesn't do a lot as well. This is kind of
Right.
just the MO of cybernetics. They have their 1-star versions are very inferior to their 2-star versions.
Oh.
Lucian does a pretty good job though, and so this comes down to Vayne versus a Caitlyn 3,
Oh.
and Vayne's gonna win pretty much every time in that scenario. So, uh, able to stabilize just a little bit heading into the Raptors.
Yeah. That was a close call, but Monfus able to maintain that HP. Quite the spread of hit points right now from first all the way down to eighth at the moment. Dark Hydra still on top, despite taking that loss. Just 6
Yeah.
Vanguard. The only synergy right now for SwellerTiger, I believe, is the player that he's looking at.
Yeah, I would say that until he gets a Irelia 2-star, his main job and mission will be to protect Vayne. Irelia, she still can carry at times. You just have to make sure that she's positioned well. That's another thing too that I think people aren't really prioritizing very much, which is Irelia's positioning can make or break the fight.
Totally. Oh, finds Aurelia too. So now you might want to move her up a little bit. Find like which side has the less tanky start for her, and just kind of go that direction.
His Zephyrs need to actually go on the other side based off that quick scouting. Okay, he does end up swapping at the last second for Vayne.
Hits the Ash.
Yeah, and this is a good start. Vayne looks very safe. This is looking like a good fight so far, but depends on if that Urgot ends up trying to pull that Vayne or not.
Urgot ended up eating the Leona. And where's that Aurelia? She got destroyed pretty quick, it seems like. And yeah, the Vayne not going to be enough to finish off that fight.
Yeah, and I guess despite all this, still not strong enough of a front line. Wukong 2 would be a huge boon. I think Wukong 2 is one of the best frontliners in the game right now.
There it is.
There you go. Okay, another big significant power spike. So if Monphis, his job's not done yet. So this is kind of the responsibility that you incur by committing to 2 Zephyrs, but you need to scout a lot and really calculate this. If you do like a generic positioning without scouting, you're kind of like wasting Zephyr at that point. If your whole desire is just to disable the front opponent's front line. But it looks like he's gonna go ahead and swap at the last second, sees that shroud movement. Is that enough?
Yep. We will see. It's gonna watch a different board at the moment. No, not back to his. Okay.
Oh no.
Oh, that Aurelia 2 doing better for sure. And that Kog'Maw's not gonna last very long. Yeah, okay. So there's the win. And
yeah,
we are at the point where Kog'Maw as your carry is gonna definitely fall off. He's very fragile.
Yeah, it actually really comes down like when you have like Vayne stuck on a frontliner and Irelia stuck on the same frontliner, that's when Cybers like loses. But that's kind of where Echo comes in. Echo can really get behind and still assassinate those carries.
Right.
And then there's the fights where it seems like Irelia targets all the best units and like snaps onto the Jinx, immediately turns around and like kills the Aurelian. So I was like, how? I don't even understand how this Aurelia is even legal in the game. It just looks like it's perfect. So it really comes down to like how you position these really key units here. But he doesn't have the best like items off the Thieves Gloves. He's got tanky Aurelia stuff, so it looks like she's going to serve as a tank this fight.
Yep. Just gonna walk forward onto the Xin Zhao for the moment. Oh, Vayne taking a lot of damage early on from that Aurelian Soul. Needs to be careful here. Slowly grinding through things, though. The Aurelia starting to do work, and man, his backline got so much time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's okay. Like, Aurelia as a tank ultimately feeds into the game plan, which is the longer you stall for Vayne, the better. And looks like Cybers is showing off a lot of fight. The rest of the lobby has kind of started falling off, too, because he's gone from last to top 4.
Yeah, not bad. If he can get this Echo, that'll be big. He's got that red buff. Oh, Narkez takes it. Could have swapped the Lucian items over to that. I suppose, yeah, he'll take that Giant Slayer. It does hurt, though, to see the Echo and then see it go away like that. When that would make such a big difference.
You gotta have faith that Echo will come back. But the Giant Slayer is a really key item on Vayne as well, giving her the ability to really cut through those tanks much quicker. So you reduce their armor, and now their health is no longer really a buffer that can be safely hidden behind. And so now the onus is really on Monphis to just find Echo, and then his composition will be done.
Right. So swapping over to watch Kalsir's point of view for a little while. He currently is sitting at 3rd in the lobby at the moment. And all right. Yeah, just kind of a good mix of things. Has the Demolitionist in there. Interesting.
Yep, one of the most consistent players in today's lobbies, as he's been top 4 every single game. Gets a Shroud, but loses his front line. If he can stall long enough for the Jinx, but Aurelia is knocking on that door. Jinx does kill her with the reset, though, and that might be the key to unlock the battle, but the front line falls, so he doesn't have enough time.
Yeah, again, it's just the amount of time that Monphis is getting for his backline that gives him the win there. Uh-oh, Aurelion Soul 2 is online. Darkstar Aurelion Soul. That sounds kind of scary,
Wow.
actually.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Like anything that gives AP to Aurelion Soul is good. Tabzz out in 8th place. That is brutal for Netherlands. Kalsir has to live on in his memory. 3-star Kog'Maw from
Ooh.
Shreddin. Love to see it, but is it too
All right.
late? He's at single-digit hit points.
Yeah, he's gonna need to win out if he's going to top 4 this lobby.
Yeah.
And even Kog'Maw 3, like, does not, generally carry that hard. Unless he's got a lot of support around him. So we'll see what Shreddin can do. Meanwhile, Tuttek, very low HP as well. In a round, he needs to win against Kalsir, but he does have that really strong Darkstar Deathcap Aurelion Soul. Look at the damage that thing is putting out at the end. Man.
Yeah, this is really cool adaptation of the Darkstar Spatula, and Kalsir takes a loss. But, 7 players have survived all the way till stage 6. This is a stark contrast. The previous lobbies that we've been seeing where half the lobbies are dead by stage 6. So you can see how more people had an equalized power level because they all had access to completed items. Taking a look at how the items are spread out, do you notice any particular outliers with these items on Kane?
Well, we've got the Shroud, or not the Shroud, the Quicksilver Sash, which is always a good item to see. Oh, and he gets a spatula. Can you use this? Oh, I guess you can if you get a Force of Nature. Oh my god.
Oh my
Kalsir
gosh.
winning the
That
jackpot
is
there.
disgusting.
10 units available.
What? That's not even
Wow.
fair.
That's crazy. All right, he gets the Aurelion Soul in there for free. Now, who else is it going to be? Like, I guess you can add in the Janna. Yeah, that seems strong. I like the QSS on Gnar. Yep. Just make sure you can get enough auto attacks to transform. Janna 2? What?
Oh my. I just want
Oh.
everything with that was great except for one thing. I just don't like the position Janna's in. That's everything else though was absolutely perfect. And you know what? He was rolling down. Can't blame him as there was a lot to balance and think about. But Kalsir just got a crazy power spike. And if he still loses, this comp sucks. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
I'm not super
Can't
impressed.
believe that. You fun and add Janna 2 and get a Quicksilver for your Gnar, and you still get bodied anyways by Ash.
I mean,
Jeez. What else do you
ultimately,
want? Better positioning,
ultimately,
maybe?
like, yeah, what are your major synergies? Like, I think Jinx needs those 6 rebels, you know? She needs that 6 rebel buff. If you're gonna play that larger amount. But man,
Yeah, I don't know if the 6 Rebels would make that big of a difference. I really do think it comes down to something as simple as where's Janna's position. You need her to buff the Jinx attack speed. That's really where the key of her strength is.
true. Fair enough. All right,
Game
another
Link.
try. Has to
Okay,
stay
we're trying to
alive.
get that Demolition to stun to give him time. The Shroud on the Blitzcrank maybe ends up helping as well, but this could be the last fight of Kalsir.
Janna gets the ult off, but that might be a little bit too late. Although, no, it is enough. The Xayah dealt with, and he was able to take out the ghosts, and that is big because that does guarantee him a top 4 as teachmeshreddin drops out in 5th. And
Yeah.
of all this, DarkHydra has been above 50 health for like a long time now. And would it not be crazy to see DarkHydra win 3 in a row?
Yeah, it would just show the reason why people fear him and claim him to be one of the top 2 players in this entire region if he was able to clean up
Seriously.
like that. Because, I mean, you could chalk up the variance, but at the same time, that's not luck to just do
No.
that 3 times in a row. It's not only luck because you do have to get fortunate to be able to be in a position to do that. One last potential fight here, but if he wins it, he's going to stay alive. Can Kalsir stay alive for Team Netherlands here? The Janna's casting, but did it buff the Jinx?
Oh my gosh. The Cassiopeia just now got her first ultimate. It was Zephyred, it was shrouded, it was knocked up by the Janna. The Cassiopeia did nothing that entire round, and SwellerTiger knocked out That was just like
Wow.
CC nightmare for Cassiopeia on SwellerTiger's side.
20 plus damage. That's what happens. And like a small thing, which is correcting Janus positioning, has made all the difference in the world. And if he took a little bit extra damage, he would have been out in bottom 4, just for reference. So you talk about how there's like things that you can do to improve. The small things make a massive difference.
Totally. We've been talking about DarkHydra a lot, and he's having a great day with 2 firsts already and maybe a third here. But Kalsir is going into his 4th game now with a top 4 finish. So easily the most consistent player of the day in terms of just good, solid results.
Yeah, very true. And very needed for Netherlands, who was struggling after yesterday's play with mingzli and Higa bombing out. But today could look to be much better.
Well, the tough
But we'll
part is
see.
that Tabzz is still out in 8th. So Netherlands still unfortunately not going to be getting as many points as I think they would have hoped, in this particular lobby. But Kalsir is certainly making a name for himself as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so the Jinx, just see how long it can stay safe. The Gangplank gets the big cast, and now Gnar follows it up. That's way too much CC, way too much AoE. And Kalsir should be cruising to a 2nd place, and NarkezTFT gets blown up. But you know what? A good rebound game for NarkezTFT, because Germany was basically carried by DarkHydra for a while. Now NarkezTFT able to contribute a big influx of points as well.
Pretty much, yeah. Finally getting in the top 4. I think that may be his first top 4 of the day, if I recall correctly. If it's not, forgive me. But now we've got a 1v1 between DarkHydra and Kalsir, and the good old-fashioned Shredder build, not even the 6 Blade Master, coming online for DarkHydra, just hyper-rolling to success.
What's kind of concerning for DarkHydra is that he actually lost a previous fight to, I believe, the Ghost. So things don't look good for him if he was end up losing to his opponent who's going up against him now. He gets the Zephyr onto the Xayah and a really good Shroud, meaning that Keelan 3 probably can't get her ability off.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a stronger board for Kalsir in the end, it seems like. But as Kalsir wins the lobby now, cool to see DarkHydra take a Shredder build that far. But it's all about Kalsir, all about the Netherlands getting a 1st place here in game number 4.
Yeah, and that's going to do it. So Brawler Blasters ends up getting the win.
Yeah.
With Janna 2 in that Force of Nature. I really thought it was a 1st place when that happened, and Kalsir almost died, which is kind of crazy to think about, like that being such a tight margin. But overall, a job well done to Kalsir, and gets a really big win for the Netherlands with an unusual comp. But that's what the Galactic Army is supposed to do. It's supposed to open up more possibilities.
Yeah, and I think that's a good example too of just the importance of positioning in the late game. Even if you do get, all of those great extra things like the Force of Nature and the extra 2-star 5 costs and all that, because you might lose a game and be like, oh, my board was so strong, what happened? But it is positioning that dictates a lot about if someone is going to win or lose or take a 1st or a 3rd or something like that. Let's take a look at our scores after 4 games. One more to go, but we do have Kalsir still just slightly behind DarkHydra, who's had a pretty equally incredible day. DarkHydra 2 firsts and now a 2nd. Kalsir catching up, and teachmeshreddin still pretty good at 3rd place there. Tabzz in 4th. Rough end for him for this last game in 8th. But yeah, it's been an interesting day of games. But after round number 1, it's been pretty much the domination of DarkHydra.
Yeah, overall, DarkHydra has just been killing it after a mediocre game number 1, first, and 2nd, which is all but certainly ensured Germany's top 4 berth. But, Kalsir and Tabzz putting on a really good performance for the Netherlands as well today. And now they're actually leapfrogging Italy, which means that they could, if they were able to put on a really good last final game here, potentially get into that 4th place spot.
I mean, I think it would be a struggle for Germany to not take 1st at this point. All they need is 5 points, which out of 2 players seems like it should be pretty doable. But yeah, I think the story here is, can Poland jump ahead of France here, right? Because all they need is a total of what would that be? 6 points between the two of them to jump into 4th and claim that last spot in the semifinals. So things are definitely not over, even to the very, very last game. But before we get there, we're going to take a break, short break. And when we come back, it's going to be game number 5. That gives you a chance right now to type !giveaway in chat and enter a chance to win some RP, $50 worth of RP from juke.gg, who's been kind enough to sponsor our tournaments, do a lot to support TFT Esports lately. So do that, chat amongst yourselves, and we'll be back in a few for the final game of the day here on the European, the Giant Slayer European Cup. We'll see you then. We are back, guys, at the Giant Slayer European Cup with myself, Doa, and with Frodan. And we have one more game to go before we figure out who our four semifinalist nations are going to be moving on to next week out of our 8 European companies, or countries rather, that have been competing in this. And it's been an interesting day. You and I were talking about it during the break, a little bit sloppy at times, but we've seen a pretty wide variety of compositions be successful, which is always kind of cool. And looking forward to what we see in the patch tomorrow, how that changes things. Should be a interesting kind of situation going forward with TFT in general. But the meta definitely sort of like settling into a more broad place. And I think a lot of people thought it would in 10.14.
Yeah, I think 10.14 will probably be remembered in hindsight as one of the more underrated patches relative to the amount of complaints that it got. The hot fix, and a little bit of the drama with like the Nebula series hosted right afterwards, and then of course Jarvan being rightfully crowned as a legendary unit, then getting another nerf in the B patch, kind of created a tumultuous 2-week relationship between many TFT players and competitive play. But I do feel like in hindsight, I look at this patch pretty fondly myself. And I'm looking forward to 10.15 because I do want to see some slight corrections. Like the Jarvan nerf seems very big. It's going from 75% base to 50% base. For perspective, you have to get 3-star Jarvan in 10.15 to get the effect of a 1-star Jarvan. So it's pretty nutty, the amount of nerfs that he's getting. That being said, I'm looking forward to it because I think that was a much needed correction because that unit's just way too good.
I think there's ways to sort of play around it. We saw Warmogs be such a big item on Jarvan in this patch, and maybe next patch suddenly Death Cap is a priority on Jarvan again to get that attack speed boost back up to, what you're used to. So there's ways to do it. It's just sort of now you're going to be forced to sacrifice tankiness with Jarvan to get that attack speed boost, which I think is a reasonable ask as far as like where Jarvan kind of lies in terms of the TFT sphere. So it'll be interesting to see. I was just really bad at this patch. That's TFT. Like every once in a while, there's a patch where you just feel like you can't figure it out. You just lose LP. You're just bad, right? And that was 10.4 for me. The last one was 10.8. That was my last really bad patch, and now 10.14 has been a rough one too. So I'm happy to see it go just on a personal level. But as a caster watching the patch, I think it has developed into a much more interesting one than a lot of people were expecting early on. And sometimes it just takes time, right? Sometimes it's better to not have some of those knee-jerk reactions as far as like the limited scope of what a patch might look like to what it could really be once people like calm down and take the time to sort of like figure out what is possible.
Yeah, very much so. And it's fun that even slight innovations happen this late into the patch, where you get to see even the small tweaks to a bunch of compositions on how they're splashing in things during the mid game, which is great. I personally believe that TFT is changed at a pace that's appropriate for my personal player desires. I do recognize that a lot of players may feel like it's too slow or too fast in certain other departments. But in terms of the quality of the game itself, I think it's proven that if TFT was left completely alone, similar to like an old analog, console game that doesn't really get patched, I'm pretty sure that the meta would still get pushed in certain areas over time because we keep finding new ways to innovate slightly, even when we say everything's been figured out. And I like that. I like that these players still try to find all those small optimization points. Like DarkHydra doing a really cool like shredder build that we haven't seen in a long time and found ways to make use of those items even though we didn't get to see them traditionally. And that Graves 3 from Tabzz is really cool.
Yeah, definitely. Graves 3, just I don't remember the last time if I've ever seen Graves 3 in a tournament game, and he made it work, used it very well. We're going to the trade sector for our final game of the day on board with DarkHydra to start things off. And it seems like we've gotten a trade sector almost every day, but that's okay because it's one of the more fun galaxies to watch, I think.
Yeah, that's right. So it looks like we're gonna have an all. Do we have a normal galaxy at all today, Doa?
No normal galaxies. It's been binary star, 2-star cluster, galactic armory, and now trade sector. And we have actually gotten a trade sector every day of the tournament so far. So there you go.
Love it, love it. I
We had
think
3 normal games yesterday, so we were due for a non-normal day.
it's still my favorite galaxy. I think alongside Treasure Trove. I like those a lot, and I look very fondly upon it. except for the times where you get that gold at the end of the round and you don't have enough time to pick it up and buy something in the shop and then reroll because it just ends so quickly if you don't have a DPS unit in.
Oh, dude, like one of my favorite changes with the patch tomorrow is the change where you actually get a little bit of time. The delay, to quote the patch notes exactly, the delay at the end of the round is returned, giving you time to pick things up. That is when that went away, I'm like, oh man, I don't have time to like see if I get gold or a unit. Do I want to sell it? Do I want to pick up something for my shop? Like I really missed having that time. So I'm really glad that's coming back, even if it does slow the game down slightly. I am fine with that.
Yeah, I like that little bit of change too. It's quality of life. Ooh. Okay.
Hmm.
So when you're on a reroll galaxy and you start off with all of this, where does your mind gravitate towards, though?
Well, I mean, you've got the opportunity for a Morellonomicon. Death Cap is an option as well, but you found the Jarvan 2 now. So you're kind of trapped between worlds, as it were, where I think you have to stick with the protectors right now. But yeah, you don't really want to slam any items at this point. He does get another one. Oh, he just gets 6 gold basically. I like the snap pickup with
Whoa.
the Ari. That was really really tight.
Yeah, nice micro. This looks like a
Yeah,
protector source for opening to me. It does
I
look
think
like
so.
Caitlyn.
Yeah.
Well, but you have two
You
Zoes, two Aries.
I was kind of waiting to see if maybe like a tier would appear because then, you've got like Morello's and the start of a blue buff and stuff. But if you're gonna build a death cap, yeah, it's almost certainly gonna end up being
What?
sorcerers. He does slam the death cap. Wow, he is really confident that he's gonna be able to find like the Cinder or something early on. Huh. Wow.
Sorry about my exclamation, but someone has a Nocturne 3.
Wait, what? Oh, what? You're right. Who got that? I just saw
I,
that pop
I
up.
that is
Oh my gosh.
nuts.
Well, that's what you call a win streak.
I mean, that's crazy lucky. I can't even begin to fathom like
Yeah, 2-1.
two
Who
like
ended up getting that?
before 2-1. Like he didn't even like yeah, that was crazy.
I mean,
Absolutely.
we've all heard the legends, but still. I saw it pop up on the side, but I didn't see who ended up with that. I would love to see their board right now. Where is it? Where'd it go? It didn't
So
die.
when you start off with a Nocturne at 3-star, you're in a prime position to play Battlecast.
Oh,
Um
yeah.
it Yeah. And so what you end up
Huh.
doing is you end up itemizing Kog'Maw as your carry, but you can have Nocturne also kind of get things like Thieves Gloves and whatnot. But he's
Right.
just so powerful that you can now start to win streak and start to aim for Battlecast 4. Now that
Yeah.
being said, the only successful variant we've ever seen of Battlecast, I know you like 4 Battlecast, Noah, but the most successful variant by a pretty big margin is 6 Battlecast. And
Oh,
Nocturne
yeah.
3 is one of the most important win conditions for it. Um, Although you do want to eventually find things like Bramble Vest, Ionic Spark for the Lowy, and then get all those attack items onto Cogma.
Oh, definitely. Like, and when I was talking about 4 Battlecast, I just think it's the most useful form of Battlecast right now, where generally in your average game of TFT at 10.14, the most use you're going to get from Battlecast is a strong mid game transition. Um, Getting to 6 Battlecast is difficult. If you can get there, it's probably still going to be weaker than most of the other compositions people are playing. So I think in terms of what's functionally the best right now in Battlecast, functionally the most usable, 4 Battlecast is still superior. But if you have a Nocturne 3, then yeah, for sure, go 6 Battlecast. You're gonna, be very strong with that. So I hope they do. I'd love to see it.
Well, what's kind of amazing is that he actually lost anyways. It's
Well,
not
I
like he's
mean,
win streaking.
you're not invulnerable, I guess. You still have to have halfway decent units around it. Like you need to have an infiltrator. You probably need to have an Alawi. And we haven't seen that board yet. So
You're on Reroll Galaxy. Surely he's found another infiltrator with Zed, for
you think
example.
so?
But
You would think
either
so.
way, kind of interesting food for thought. An RE2 is also extremely powerful this early on. I like that Death Cap Slam.
Yeah, for
I would
sure.
imagine that he wants to find another belt to immediately go for a Warmogs, and then DarkHydra will be in a very good spot to get to level 7 very comfortably.
Yeah, and there's a lot of players. Like I was watching St. Vicious's stream the other day, and he was talking about how he like to just kind of rely on Ari for a lot longer than other people do. You know, some people are tempted as soon as they find that Syndra to start swapping things over, but Ari can be a great carry deep into the mid game. So with the death cap on her, I think he's going to be relying on the Ari for a long time.
Yeah, I think that Ari is just a more reliable carry than Syndra is. Much cheaper, gets online much quicker, and because Syndra is more of a transitionary carry these days, unless you go 6-star Guardians, you just tend to have Syndra be an item holder anyways, which means if someone does something a little bit quick, like a lot quicker and a little bit more efficiently, then why not just use the Ari instead? Which makes sense.
Sure thing. We're going to go and check out what SwellerTiger is up to. And of course, he is our Nocturne 3 player. So he does have the Alawi. All right. Does have
Okay.
an Alawi 2, in fact, actually. What do you think about a RFC on this Nocturne 3?
I think that you really need to prioritize Kog'Maw items. I know that it's like pretty tempting to start slamming stuff on wow, Teemo and
Fair point.
it's really, really important. He ends up going for a GA onto the Z, which is also interesting, given that items like Bramble Vest on the Alawi are usually really important. But what this actually tells me is that he might actually not end up playing Battlecast based off the way he's doing that. He does have the Static Shiv, which is also kind of important.
Mhm.
So he does still have the opportunity if he just plays a Kog'Maw to slap it in there, but GA isn't the most common item to play in the Battlecast competition.
Well, I wonder if he's thinking about, maybe a Shaco and putting a GA on that. And then, he's already got the Jarvan too. So you could go for like some sort of Dark Star thing with Nocturne as your other infiltrator to just be this really strong sort of side unit. Oh, wow. All right. Well, now I think he's probably just going to sell it at some point.
Well, I mean, he could just basically play Infiltrator Protector
Yeah.
and maybe even go for the really cool variation of 4 Infiltrator Protector, which is something that you don't see very often, but you play Shaco Fizz, Echo plus like some other infiltrator, and in this case it'd be a Nocturne 3.
Not bad.
That'd be kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie. That's a real. I haven't seen that in a long time. I've seen it like maybe twice this entire like mid set, but like the times that it does work out that way, it is beautiful.
Static Shiv is pretty useful on the Nocturne 3 as well because it gets the most benefit because Shiv does scale with star level. So he is going to be getting the most out of putting that on a 3-star more than you would from any other unit really there. But it's interesting. This is a dangerous game for SwellerTiger because when you run into situations like this, you have to be careful to not let that 3-star over dictate what you're playing, right? You'll still need to put together a good comp. You realize you're probably going to need to be a little bit more creative than usual, but you need to be careful and ride that line and not get like too fancy with it, you know?
Right. Which is probably what he's thinking about actually. He's saying maybe I
Totally.
should overreact to the Nocturne 3. But yet I look at 2 more Lowies in the shop and I look at the Static Shiv. I look at that spatula, which could have also helped him with that.
Oh man. Like, what if he goes because Nocturne casts pretty frequently. What if you go
For
Protector Shojin's Static Shiv Nocturne 3?
what?
I can't say without laughing,
That
but
sounds like a really good way to get biffed, I think. I don't know.
see,
That
yeah, you got to be creative. You have to explore all the possibilities. I feel
right.
like he's going to go that direction that I talked about earlier, where it's going to be Dark Stars, and then Nocturne is just going to be this, strong side unit to, go with your Shaco. And he may even just sell it at some point. But um, this seems like a more measured, admittedly slightly more boring way to approach a Nocturne 3 on your board. But, he wants to win, and I won't begrudge him of that.
Yeah, he has an early gen. He's recovering his eco, and I think it's
Yeah,
totally fine. It might even just be the right call.
I
But
think it
yeah,
is.
it's totally something that's like viable, and he wants to continue to preserve his win streak. It just,
Yeah.
it is kind of sad because he had things like Kog'Maw and the Alaois and whatnot. He sold them,
Might
but
find
totally
another couple
reasonable.
Cogmas.
Oh, jeez. This was a Battlecast game if he really wanted it to be, but at the same time, finding the Shaco 2 immediately, this guy just finds anything he wants right now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Silly.
I mean, you can't blame the guy for being afraid of playing the Battlecast game, but why not? It's like, don't
Why
you want to
not?
be remembered?
Well, this is what I was talking about, where like certain times the conditions for Battlecast are met and you can totally go for it, and it's actually like good. Like the reroll galaxy is like the only galaxy I think that you should ever consider playing Battlecast. And the data completely backs it up that it's so unpopular relative to how powerful it is.
Sure.
Its win rate is almost equal to Dark Stars. It's actually way better than a bunch of other compositions. It's better than a lot of 4-star Dark Star variants that he's actually going for. It's better than Shredder. It's better than the Protector Celestials. It's better than the Vanguard Mystics.
Specifically on trade sector, or are you talking in general?
Yeah, on trade sector. The only composition that it doesn't outperform significantly is Astro Sniper and the Janazareth comp. So that would put it at a top 3 composition to play on this galaxy if you were to trust the data. But of course, data is always kind of murky, and it could be one of those things where, like, because it's less popular, it ends up doing better. If more people end up doing it, maybe the stats drop more.
Yep. If it's contested, if you can imagine a world where Battlecast is contested, that might make a difference. That said, 94 HP, he's on a long win streak, so he's been able to put together a board that capitalizes on the Nocturne 3 either way, but it's other things too. It's hitting the Jhin early, it's hitting the Shaco 2 very early. He's just got a lot going for him this game.
Yeah, so it looks like Sweller is doing really well, and I think he's just going to be win streaking for a while.
Yeah. Certainly seems that way.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
so we'll go see what Tuttek is up to now. Tuttek from Poland. And Poland, again, that the nation with the chance of overtaking, I believe it was France, and just barely edging into that top 4. Making it to the semis. I believe they needed 6 points total to make that jump. So a lot of pressure on Tuttek and teachmeshreddin this game.
Yeah, we'll see how they choose to go about things. Looks like he is favoring an Ashe build. It seems to be the flavor of this lobby and, quite frankly, the flavor of Europe in general. They love Ashe carry. It seems to be a big priority. Not only that, it seems like EU just loves Shojin, Spirit of Shojin. It goes on a lot of their carries, like Ashe or Shaco or Janna or Thresh or Lulu. It just feels like for them, they feel like Shojin is a really powerful item right now to play in almost every composition.
Whoa. Okay. So he goes to level 7 on 3-5, goes for the free roll, finds the Echo. Is that something that he can possibly build around? It doesn't fit what he's doing right now, but I want to hold on to it for a while.
Yeah, I question how good Force Celestial is at this stage of the game. You have a lot of 1-stars, and healing, 25% or whatever of your damage of a 1-star unit is not actually that good. So I actually think the Echo, if you're not going to sell the Echo, end up being okay. He ends up selling it, which means that he wants to make interest point, but he lost so convincingly that, it kind of makes it feel like that game plan couldn't ever work. So now he has to go back to the drawing board here.
I like the Syndra. He rolls past it, but he doesn't really have the items for it yet all that much, but he does have a decent board to protect it anyway. And I agree. I think Force Celestial is a little bit overrated in general right now, and we don't see it a ton, but we're in such a burst heavy meta as well that the healing just doesn't end up making a difference if you get one shot,
Okay. This is so interesting to me. Is he just committing to a lose streak? He replaced a Mordekaiser 2 with a 1-star Caitlyn to get slight sniper damage bonus, but
I mean, he must, right?
gives up almost all his free line. It's pretty interesting to me. Like, these are things that I guess I don't really like lean towards at all. And it seems like Tuttek might be just trying to intentionally keep losing here, but sells the Mordekaiser 2 straight up. All right. We'll
Wow. All right.
see if his roll down at 7 is going to be able to pull him out, because he's playing pretty aggressive, like to try to recover his eco by selling these higher cost units. And he hits Ash 2 and the Shinzao 2 with back-to-back rolls. That was really important.
Yeah, it's a nice upgrade. He's not really going to have much gold for like a 4-1 level 7 roll down or anything like that. So he needs to go into a sort of a period of saving and gathering gold right now. See what items he gets out of the infiltrators. All right. So Rage Blade is a possibility. Probably don't want red buff. Static Shiv is in there. A few different options. Ooh, Aurelian Soul. All right. So it drops the 4 Celestial, which I think is totally fine.
Right. And then I think we can start to evaluate if we're in Tutek's position of like, what does our composition want to? Is this our composition until we go to 8? Is there a way that we can make it much better? Could probably end up just going for either Frozen Heart or Redemption. I think Redemption is starting to climb back more into my tier list, because I feel like it's really important to get that burst of health. And it helps give you more positioning advantages, because you could position Redemption into your opponent's carries and then give yourself like basically a team wide locket of the Iron Solari. So I appreciate that item a lot, even though Frozen Heart's
Oh,
also very good.
wow. Finds a really early Janna. Like he has found so many 5 costs actually. Hit the Echo, hit the Asol, hit the Janna.
Right.
And
He's found the correct ones too. Like you can
yeah,
find like he found an Echo, and it's like the Echo's not really useful, so he sells it back. If he finds like like a Xerath, that's awesome. He finds a Janna, that's great. Thresh would also be good.
debating on putting in that Soraka because she has a Star Guardian. It would do true damage, such as it were for the auto attacks, I suppose. But oh, that's a pretty devastating Shroud actually coming in
Yeah,
from
that's a
Kalsir.
big shroud.
Yeah. Janna's going to cast so late in the fight. It might still be enough, though. The Ashe not taking any damage, and now she's firing super fast. And yeah, close call. That Shroud was really bad, but winning that round is pretty nice.
Yeah, it's to be expected, because Kelsier is saving up a bunch of gold and looks like he's going to level 8 very fast and rolling down. So this was like the brief period of time where Tuttek still feels in a pretty good spot. I would definitely say that if he doesn't get more 2-stars soon, he is all in on the Janna and Ashe scenario. And that's risky, right? Because like if you get shrouded and your opponent jumps to your back line, you're done.
Yeah,
But if it goes off, it'll work really beautifully. It's a glass cannon build right now, and we'll see if it ends up working out for him.
right. All right. Well, going up against his teammate teachmeshreddin, unfortunately, because again, remember this, they need to get a total of 6 points combined. I believe it is to get into the semifinals. And doing damage to your teammates does not help too much. That's a strong Xerath on the other side, though.
Yeah, and it looks like he ends up biting the dust, and
Ouch.
he is just under leveled. I think that what might be a very simple solution to his problems, which is to get to level 8 so you can even just fight competitively. But the problem is that he doesn't have the economy to back it up, and
Yeah.
also if he gets to level 8, he still has a half army of 1-star.
Yep. It's a major problem. Right now, Tabzz down at the bottom of the lobby, trying to pick things up a little bit. Now, Tuttek did pick up the sword, so he's got the ability to build a second Shojin's, which could
Okay.
go on the Ashe. It might just go on the Janna as well. I think that would make, as I understand it, a little bit more sense. Get the Ashe firing faster.
Yeah, I mean, they both kind of do the same thing, which is they buff Ash's attack speed. The Shojin on the Janna gives you the benefit of being able to immediately cast a Janna a lot quicker, and
Mm,
then you will buff the attack speed. The upside of this is Ashe will deal a lot more damage. And so if
true.
you want to just go for straight up more damage, you could do it that way. I think I would have stacked the Janna.
I agree. I think the benefit that the Janna gives your whole team, and then especially your Ashe, would outweigh having the second Shojins. Because
Yeah.
with the Shojins on Janna, then you have two good carries, right? In the Janna, which will be chain casting a lot, and the Ashe, which will be casting a lot faster as well. Whereas now you just have the Ashe. So, you know, we'll see how that works out. But I'm a little bit surprised it didn't end up going on the Janna. Meanwhile, we have swapped over to Tabzz, who is going for the Astro Snipers and doing pretty well with it, it looks like.
It.
He
This
needs
team
it too because
positioning
he's
is
done it.
very clever. It's very, very clever because he's making Teemo a lot safer from the Shakos, and he's still so he's safe enough against like those backline infiltrators, but he's still casting like immediately right in front of him, so that people that try to jump in that low space and close that gap will take big damage. So that was very clever. He finds his own Janna as well. And yeah, you could totally just not itemize Janna for a while if you do want to lean into the Ashe build. So I think it's totally fine. In terms of the Astro Mystics, they don't traditionally play Janna, but they totally could. They want to drop like the snipers, for example.
Sure. I mean, if you can get Teemo throwing out shrooms even faster, that's great. Gets hit with the Shroud there, but luckily Teemo, one of the champions that's a little bit less affected by that, gets knocked up by the Jarvan though. So a little bit of a delay in terms of placing those mushrooms. But man, if you get the blue buff on Teemo and the Astro buff, he casts so fast. But he is still fragile, and Narkez does take the win, putting Tabzz down to 13 HP. teachmeshreddin down to 9. That would be a disaster for Poland if he got knocked out in 8th.
Yeah, teachmeshreddin and Tuttek really need to get those points. So going out like that would be a huge disappointment just in terms of getting to the next stage. But at the same time, everyone kind of feels that desperation. Tabzz, he wants to go like 1-2 along with Kalsir, and it doesn't look like that's going to be happening here on the
Right.
current pace that we're on.
Yeah, not likely. Like we mentioned, Netherlands would still have a chance, but they need to have that, like you mentioned, 1-2 result. They need to have an insane result to get
Oh,
there.
wow. Force of
Okay, this is some item.
nature. That's huge.
Wow. All right, yeah, Rage Blade on Teemo. That seems reasonable.
Yeah,
No,
this is
no gold,
really
but
powerful. Now he has 10 units in, so he gets like an additional synergy that he doesn't really need, or that doesn't traditionally go in. You don't see Janna often played, but now all of a sudden, he has CC in. And this composition is already very heavy on the crowd control, simply because there's just so many things that pop things up. Nars bounces up, Nars swipes it to the left, he even has a Blitzcrank in there to pull. And Teemo slows everything. You polymorph with the Lulu. It's just a lot to handle. And
yeah,
DarkHydra takes a big loss from Tabzz.
Janna didn't even cast that round, and he still won that super convincingly. Like if Janna does get a cast off, then it's going to be lights out, So this is definitely looking like it could be
Ooh.
the strongest board in the lobby right now.
Yeah, it's kind of tough. The last unit, I think, is a toss-up between Janna and Thresh. Although he does have a Blitzcrank in, so you could just replace Thresh with or replace Blitzcrank with Thresh, and then have Thresh pull in Blitzcrank. Um,
True, you
so
don't
it's
lose
a
that
tough
much.
situation.
Yeah, you lose
Yeah.
350 HP on the Gnar, but the later the game goes, the less that matters.
Right, because it can matter, right? Like it can matter if it's a difference between narc casting and not, but oftentimes it does
Sure.
not. Shrouds do come down on the Ashe, and this is a fight for survival on both sides. Both players really low, but Tabzz has a lot of units, and the big AOE CC. It's kind of hard to figure out who's going to come out ahead.
Yeah, Teemo was stunned for so long. The mushrooms come down. They're not the most effective, but it's enough. Tuttek out in, I believe that was 8th, and that is really unfortunate for Poland. Tuttek out in 7th, actually. Oh no, Poland out in 7th and 8th. So that is it. They
Whoa!
can't overtake France now. They were at 94 points, or they were at 93 points total rather before the game began. France is at 98. And Poland, unfortunately, will end at, I believe that would be 96, right? 93 plus 3 is 6? Yes. Okay. I'm good at math. Either way, rough end for Poland, who were so close to having a chance to
Wow.
make it into those semis.
That is so unfortunate for Poland, but
Oh,
the story is, can Tabzz continue this charge through the bottom of the lobby? Teemo in this pocket shoulder positioning, I am loving it. It is
yeah,
working out so well, and he's able to dodge all of these arrows that Ashes are targeting. It's so clever because I thought it was about infiltrators, but it's actually a defense against Ashe because she targets the farthest unit, and Teemo's never
right.
the farthest.
It makes a lot of sense when you think about it, and you think about the amount of Ashe in the meta right now. That's big, and he dealt big damage to both the German players as well, which it seems like Germany will be making it onto the semis anyway, but does knock them down a peg. So Tabzz along with kalsir from the Netherlands. Again, if they get very, very high finishes, they have a chance to overtake France, I suppose. And kalsir is number one in the lobby, so it may be possible. That's right. So, oh, he finds a chance to get a Lulu too.
That's huge. I don't think Team of 3 is a reasonable win condition right now, given the stakes right now. He's at level 9, he has no eco, and he might die at any given moment, so you gotta go for it. Looks
Yep.
like he's gonna do one last swap right back to his original positioning, trying to keep Teemo safe. I like the positioning for the Karma as well, just to give him that
Uh-oh.
little shield, and he's gonna try to fight for his life here.
That Nico. If the Nico hits the Teemo and slows it down, that could be a problem. Looks like he's just out of range, which is super lucky. I was worried she was going to walk forward a little bit. Wukong messing up the back lines, giving Teemo and Janna a lot more time to fire here. And DarkHydra, you can see him running back and forth. He's frantic because he knows he's in trouble. And Tabzz getting another win. Narkez out in 7th now, or in 6th, I'm sorry. So that is one down from Germany as Tabzz continues to march towards the top half of the pack, and he finds the Janna too. So
Oh, wow. That is huge. Right before this, I was talking with some of my buddies about how I think Astro Snipers is just the nuts. It just keeps getting stronger and stronger. And at one point, you just stop losing when you get everything online. And this is exactly the scenario that I pictured in my mind. But you add the fact that Tabzz is scouting and positioning excellently. That shroud that caught Xerath and Janna was huge. Once more with the juke back and forth. Can
whoop.
he survive again?
He does not dodge the shroud that time, but it doesn't affect Teemo that much, so it's okay. The Cassiopeia in the back lines, I feel like is just going to do damage too slowly compared to everything else that's coming out from Tab's side of things. And now that the Janna is online, he's got a really good shot of winning this one again. And this is against his teammate kalsir. So it's actually kind of good that he didn't win super hard because it did a little bit less damage to kalsir than it would have otherwise. Monphis now takes the first place spot in the lobby, but this is getting tense.
Yeah, the Dutch dream is alive. We talked about how if they finish first and second, they're going to make it really close in points.
Yeah.
We'll have to find out if it ends up doing it, but it is very much a possibility. It is on the table that Tabzz and Kalsir can finish first and second, get 18 points, and make a deep run, a very late comeback, which would be just quite the story for this group stage if that ends up happening.
Yeah. So we'll see what he gets out of the cane. All right, Swordbreaker. That's something, I guess.
It's so good, right, Noah? It's Swordbreaker. It's your item.
Yeah, it's true. It's an item I have high hopes in, and it is. And you did say that it is good in the late game. So we'll see if he can put it into practice here. Who'd you put it on here?
I think I just want like defensive stats on like Gnar, I think, just because I want to give him a
Yeah,
little
okay.
bit more of that. If we're like really worried about anything else though, I'd probably just like slap it on like Wukong just to keep him alive, but some kind of frontliner that will stay alive for the fight. But look at this. This is gonna be a
Uh-oh.
hard fight to win.
Yeah, it will, because you've got that Nocturne 3 from all the way back at the beginning of the game. Oh, but Nautilus there to try to protect Teemo. And Teemo just needs one more cast, basically. Oh, and he gets it. Oh, that Nocturne did not take damage, though. He's got that Dragon's Claw. And it might just be over here. The Nocturne 3 from back at like
Wow.
1-4 deals the death blow to Tabzz and the death blow to Netherlands as far as their chances of getting into the top 4. Wow. It was
It
so
was
close.
so close.
It was so close. But
Yep.
In the end, it was that Nocturne 3.
That's
Wow.
right. And kind of hopping in with another POV. Monphis has the 6 Blade Masters, so we might see another win with Xayah carry, but instead of the Shredder Celestial, ends up just going for a 6 Blade Master featuring some cybernetics top end, which I like a lot.
Yeah.
Misposition at the end though.
Oops.
Oh gosh, and it goes straight into that shroud.
Oh, yeah, it does. So both Xayah and Jarvan going to be slowed down a little bit. That said, all the attacks you get from the 6 Blade Masters. Oh my gosh. Xayah almost got eaten by Urgot there. You see Monphis like freaking out for a second there and then realizing his Xayah actually survived. That was a roller coaster of emotion on the face of Monphis there.
Delivered that final
but
blow to DarkHydra. It's okay,
SwellerTiger
Germany
out.
didn't need it. But,
Yeah.
this is a big charge from Italy.
Yeah, SwellerTiger out in 4th though. That's a rough one. Yep. As it is now, Monphis versus Kalsir. But I believe despite the results of this lobby, the top 4 are determined. So this is just a battle for pride between Monphis and Kalsir right now.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to these Fiora items. Fiora, sometimes when she gets things like this, she might end up doing more damage than Xayah. Just keep that in mind. Probably not going to happen given that she's on the front line versus Jace, but yeah,
Oh,
this composition seems to be fully online, and it's going to be hard to stop. It does seem like this is holding out pretty well, though.
Yeah, until Urgot ate Fiora.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it will be. Fiora. Yeah, it looks like it'll be Kalsir taking this round at least. Monphis has 1 more life, so a chance to rearrange things. Ideally, dodge the Urgot, because if he dodges the Urgot, he's probably okay. But if one of his carries with all the items gets eaten, then that's probably not a round he's going to win.
Yep. That's a good point. And so we come down to the resolution one way or another. This battle will end with the exception of a 1-star unit surviving, I think, on the other side for Kalsir.
Seems quite possible. I like this.
It's kind of rare for that to happen.
Yeah.
People to survive win by like a single 1-star at this stage of the game, but sometimes it does happen.
Yeah. There's a couple 1-stars in the boards, so you never know. But here we go. Monphis versus Kalsir. The Shroud. Oh, the Shroud hits everybody again. Really unfortunate Shroud damage onto Monphis there. And when I say damage, I just means the fact that all the ults are going to be slowed down a lot. Jarvan's getting eaten. Oh no! Jarvan. Poor Jarvan. And I don't think the Fiora can carry on her own. Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about. Shroud aside, it really comes down to the Urgot a lot of times as well. Fiora lasting about as long as she can, but that is going to be it. And Kalsir takes the win in our final lobby. And some exciting stuff from start to finish. That was an exciting last game.
Yeah, I would say that overall, like, it was a really good job, like specifically by Netherlands to make that charge. If Tabzz had a little bit more HP, I think that was definitely a really close one. I think his comp would outscale those compositions. I think that his positioning for that fight against Nocturne 3 was exactly what I was talking about, which is the one weakness of Teemo in the late game is if a straggler ends up sticking on Teemo a lot longer. And that Dragon's Claw was kind of genius because you saw that Sweller was trying to stick the Nocturne onto the Teemo, and had he just simply switched sides and Teemo was on the left instead of the right, I'm pretty sure Tabzz would have won, knocked out Sweller potentially, and then make it to the top 3, which would have put Netherlands in a chance to move on. So there's nothing wrong with the way Tabzz played, I think. It just happened to be better play, or rather counterplay from that Nocturne that ended up sticking out to that team.
Right. It's always cool when the battles are ended up being decided by the little things, the little decisions that you may not see normally, like a Dragon's Claw and Nocturne. That kind of shows TFT. I think it's at its highest level of skill expression. But let's take a look at the final scores. And it is going to be Kalsir in number 1 for points overall today.
Wow.
DarkHydra, 39 points, 1 behind him. But we had 2 players win 2 games in a row. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and Kalsir had an extremely impressive performance today. 40 points. That is very nice. Never dropping outside the top 4. DarkHydra also almost did, except the difference was that one time he got 5th versus 4th.
Yeah.
And then everyone else was pretty close. It's actually not super common where you see the players 3 through 8 this close in point. Usually it's like one player that's very far behind or 2 players who are very far behind. So overall, a pretty good day.
Yep, that's right. So let's take a look at the national scores overall here. And Germany ends up taking the number 1 spot at the end of week 2 with a ton of points, 124. That means our top 4, the
Wow.
teams advancing to the semis are going to be Germany, Portugal, Spain, and France. Poland and Netherlands both missing out by 2 points, which is a bit of a bummer. It ended up being very close in the end between the bottom 5, actually. But
Yes.
yeah, Germany advances. And as such, we are going to be having a chat with DarkHydra, who is the highest point scorer from one of the teams moving on to the semifinals. And I believe we've got him in here right now. So DarkHydra,
Yep.
are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, hello.
Hey, how's it going? I
Doing
think
Doing good.
I haven't talked to you since like StarCraft 2, man, way back in the day. It's great to see you crushing it in TFT now.
Yep, a long time ago actually, StarCraft 2.
Yeah, seriously. So what's it been like? Obviously you played great today. Germany dominated this week. What's it been like transitioning from one game to another as a pro player?
Oh, it's actually quite fun, like learning new games. Like I actually played a lot of games and tried to get the highest rank, and then eventually I get bored and then just swap games.
Makes sense.
So,
What is it
yeah.
about TFT that's causing you to stick around?
I think it's mostly the community and the streaming part, because I actually love streaming and I love the community and the people in TFT. So it's always fun to play the game and talk to people. And also
Okay.
TFT is 2 free.
Awesome.
Yeah, TFT community is pretty awesome. When you compare it to your time competing in StarCraft, where Doa likes to make comparisons to StarCraft and TFT a
I
lot,
do,
which is
I
I
do.
always think pretty interesting. Do you have similar comparisons at all?
I feel like in StarCraft, because I really like watching streams as well, but I feel like in StarCraft I played not enough games because I end up spending too much time on Twitch and watching streams, so my mechanics were not on point.
Ah.
But I feel like in TFT, if you watch streams, you can learn so much, so you can actually improve so much by watching streams, which makes it really good for me, I guess.
Okay.
That's true. A
So
lot of people from
Okay.
Europe put you as one of the top 2 to 3 players in the region, and as many people do that would say top 2, 3 players in the world. Do you agree with that? Do you feel like their hype is justified when they say all this stuff about you?
I think so, yeah. I think the top 3 in EU is like Daisy, Salvyyy, and me,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm like not sure which one is the best, right? I feel like we're all equal in skill, but I feel like Daisy has been slacking a lot lately because he was
Yeah,
like
where's
not
Daisy,
motivated
huh?
and had to play
Hmm.
Russian server.
Interesting.
It's tough. Yeah, I would have loved to see Daisy compete in this tournament, but no Russian team, unfortunately.
So
How you been enjoying? Oh, sorry, Do. You want to go ahead?
no, go ahead, man.
I was just gonna ask, how you've been enjoying like the balance between also competing in Twitch Rivals and also doing this. Has it kind of been like Milk was talking about how there's like no tournaments in TFT, and all of a sudden it feels like all the tournaments are happening in TFT at once with other things going on. Is it overwhelming to you?
I feel like mostly the last few days I just played League every day to practice for Twitch Rivals. So I actually didn't
Doing
play
good?
much TFT. What did you say?
Do you feel okay in League and prepared for that as well?
Yeah, I'm ready.
What position are you
Alright.
playing in League? I
I'm
actually don't know.
playing AD carry.
Oh, okay.
You would.
All right. Fair enough. You can get some tips from Tabzz, another one of our players in the lobby. He used to play a lot of AD carry.
Yeah, we scrimmed
he
today
was.
actually against Tabzz team.
Oh, okay. All right. Maybe he doesn't want to give you tips then. So we're in the last day of patch 10.14. it was a patch that like was kind of contentious at first, right? Where like a lot of people felt pretty negatively about it, but towards the end, I feel like the last few days the patch has really opened up, and there's been a lot of variety in terms of compositions. Like, what are your feelings kind of on 10.14, how it's evolved, and sort of what you're looking forward to happening as we kind of switch to 10.15 tomorrow?
I feel like my game plan for this patch is just buy Protector and then build a combo around it. So I actually don't have much variety. So I just play Protector Syndra, I go Darkstar Protector, or just go Shredder. And then worst case, I just pick a other combo and try to get top 4 somehow. But yeah, it's
okay.
mostly Protector for me, I feel like.
Just protectors and then whatever you happen to hit to kind of build around it.
Yeah, pretty much in terms of items and rolls.
So what do you think you're gonna need to do tomorrow then? Because there's some nerfs coming in, other stuff is getting bigger. Do you think you're gonna be able to continue playing that way, or are you gonna have to change things up?
I'll probably have to change things up again, because usually the meta changes a lot, right, with each patch.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Any
so look forward to
predictions?
playing different comps again. And I
Any,
feel like Cybers might make a comeback. But I haven't
okay.
really read all the patch notes. I just saw Vayne buff and like Protector nerfs, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right, cool. Well, we'll ask you one more question. I guess since this is sort of like a international tournament, there's national pride on the line. Is there anything you want to say to the German community? Thank you for supporting you or something like that. Use a
Yeah,
platform.
thanks for all the support, and we'll make sure to win the tournament. Shouldn't be too hard, so yeah, just keep rooting for us.
That's right.
All right,
Too
there
easy
you
for
go.
the
The bold statements coming out of DarkHydra. That's great. Are you gonna have to like rename yourself like Darkstar Hydra now or something like that after switching to TFT and
No, I
succeeding
think
this
I'm
meta?
fine.
Oh, okay.
Keeping the name.
We'll check back with you later then. All right, cool. Thanks. That's
Sure.
thanks for stopping by, DarkHydra. Congratulations again on your high score today, and then also on Germany making it to the semifinals in first place overall. Great performance this week, and good luck in the semis next week.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for the interview.
Yeah,
Yeah,
our
see
pleasure.
ya.
Take care, man. GG's.
Yep, see ya. All right, so there you have it, guys. DarkHydra from Team Germany, pro gamer for many, many years across different games, now finding success in teamfight tactics, and a big part of getting Germany to the semifinals. Won 2 games today. That's pretty huge. So yeah, awesome. That's it. So now we know what our semifinalists are going to be. Next week, it's going to be at 12 p.m. Pacific time, same time as we have today, basically. And then we'll be into the semis. It's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think this was also a really good showing from some players who are on teams that didn't necessarily compete and get to the point threshold to advance. But like,
Right.
I think Kalsir played really well today, and I think that's like
Definitely.
a player that I have to keep my eye on. If I see, Kalsir's name on the leaderboards, that's going to be a name that I want to gravitate towards and learn from moving
Yeah.
forward. So I think the European Cup, one of the best things about it is a collection of communities and streamers together, but also to discover the hidden talent within each region, and I love seeing that.
That's always one of the best things about these like international competitions is giving that platform for players that have the skill but haven't been able to show it before. So like Sasa from Germany as well. I think Captain Rodriguez from Portugal. There's a lot of great players to kind of go watch now because you know where all their streams are now. You guys should have those. The player POVs are out there. Juke.gg/TFT. You can go find them. And speaking of Juke.gg, thanks to them for sponsoring the tournament. And type ! giveaway in chat again for your chance at winning some RP. They've been great to us, so continue to support them. Check out their site. And yeah, that's about it for this stage of the tournament. I always ask you, Frodan, any parting thoughts?
Yeah, just make sure to tune in tomorrow for Teamfight Talk Show with Doe and myself and special guest Kiyun, so we can talk
Right.
about 10.15 and have him do the usual shenanigans of give an opinion piece tier list, which is going to be really fun.
That's going to be awesome. All right, thanks for watching, guys. We will see you next week for the semifinals of Giant Slayer's European Cup. Until then, Doa and Frodan saying see ya, enjoy some TFT, and join us next week.